Good evening. I'd like to call to order the work session for the Town of Superior Board of Trustees for August 8th, 2016. Tonight we have a couple of advisory committee interviews.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Tonight we've scheduled two interviews for the Youth Leadership Council. We have two students who are interested in serving on that council. Soha Kadem and Jack Reuter are here tonight. Would you like to have them come up one at a time or both together? One at a time. Sure. Soha, you want to come up and introduce yourself to the board and tell the board a little bit about yourself, and they may have some questions for you as well.
We've created a kind of a complication for them. Okay, they get to stand out there and okay. There you go.
My name is Soha Kadem, and I'm going to be a sophomore over at Fairview High School. I enjoy playing volleyball, and I'm really interested in volunteering around my community. I am part of National Honor Society over at Fairview, and would love to be involved in the Town of Superior.
Great. Thank you for your interest in the commission. So, questions from the board?
Both of you had the same comments on your application that there need to be more summer activities for youth. I'm interested in hearing from both of you what your ideas are on that, because I happen to agree with you.
Yeah.
But what would you like to see happen?
So when I was younger, I loved the movies nights. I would go every Friday that they were available. But I found now that I'm getting older, I kind of find there's less opportunity for me, and I'm not as interested in the field and watching the movies with my family. But I think last year, for example, the kickball tournament was a big hit, and I just really think there should be more athletics for youth to be involved in, because we are like a very athletic. Colorado is competitive, and I just think more tournaments like that would be interesting to get involved in.
Okay, good.
Great, thank you. Others?
Yeah, so you're a sophomore at Fairview.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that the Fairview High School students are well enough integrated into the community during the year? Or, do they have enough contact with the Monarch students and things like that?
I think they do, even though there's a rivalry. I guess lots of Fairview kids, I know a bunch that live in Superior and Louisville, and that area were kind of dispersed, so I think there's a good connection between us. I'm not sure if maybe those types of tournaments could bring us together. Maybe we could do youth in Fairview versus like youth in Monarch and the Town of Superior, kind of have that thing. I think that would really get people excited and competing against another school, but outside of during the school year.
Great. Yes.
I do have a question about, do you or have you in the past ever used the Louisville Library?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you still do it now, or is it kind of something that's gone the way of
I went actually last week to read. I didn't actually check out any books, but I have a summer reading book that I have to read for the IB diploma at Fairview, so I went over and just found a nice corner and read in that library.
So a place like that would be of interest, you think, too? It would be a future thing, maybe not necessarily for you to be able to participate, but we'd, I think, be interested in having the youth from the Superior Youth Leadership Council give us some guidance and some insight on what would be a good place that youth teenagers could gather in the summer and in the school time as well. Yeah. Do you think about something like that? Is there any place that is kind of inviting to youth that maybe isn't in Superior that might be a good gathering spot that we could look at?
I mean, usually in Boulder, there's like Pearl Street where they're shopping, and I know they're putting that right across the street over there, so I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but also the athletics over there. I play volleyball, and my new club season is going to have a practice once a week over at like the Impact sports facility over there.
Okay.
So at first, when I knew something was going to be built, I was kind of skeptical. I liked open space, but now that I know my practices can be there, it's going to be convenient and close. So I'm excited to see how that's going to turn out and see.
Excellent. We're excited too to see how it's going to turn out.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your interest.
Whoa.
One more?
No, I missed it now, okay.
Okay.
But he's the youth leadership liaisons, and she's an applicant.
Well, welcome. I'm only the liaison for one more meeting. So
Yes.
that's it.
Yeah.
Somebody else will take over after I'm
We're thrilled whenever anyone wants to join, I think. Anybody who wants to join should be able to, particularly if you have great ideas of things that could improve the whole program in the town. Thank you.
So one question we ask all applicants of all of our committees and commissions is, do you have any potential of conflict of interest? I don't even know what a conflict of interest for Youth Leadership Council would be, but like if you had a side business that might
Cater to teenagers.
Cater to teenagers might be a conflict of interest, but I doubt that would be the case. But we have to, just one of those technicalities we have to ask
I
everyone.
understand, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you. We'll
Thank you.
go on to our next applicant.
Hi, I'm Jack Ritter. I'm going to 8th grade at Eldorado K-8. I'm interested in tennis, and at school I'm in student council, and I'm in like intramural sports.
Great. We appreciate
Well, you're
your
dressed to be the
interest.
next mayor of Superior, I think. So.
There's
Yes.
an election in November
Yeah.
for trustee.
He has to be a little bit older, maybe,
Right.
but not much.
Is there an age limit?
You
Have
will
to be able to vote.
Oh, able to vote, oh, of course.
18.
Oh,
Details.
okay.
Well, thank you. Well, tell us maybe a little bit about some of your ideas for what you think would be an improvement for youth in Superior.
I think an improvement that I could help the town, the town youth leadership council help, is that I have an Instagram, and that's how I contact a lot of my friends during the summertime. And I think I've heard that we have a Facebook account for the town of Superior Youth Leadership, but that none of my friends have Facebook, and no one in my grade has a Facebook. So I think that I could share ideas over Instagram and other social media.
So
No,
Facebook's
that's a
going
great
away.
idea.
Uh,
Facebook
no,
is for older folks, not for
yeah,
them.
Facebook's
Darn
for
it.
yeah.
Just when I thought I was catching up.
No, to enhance communication, I think Instagram
That's
is
a
the way to
good
go,
idea.
definitely.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
That's great.
Your first step would have to be give us a class on Instagram, because I'm out of the loop on Instagram, I have to say.
It's not that hard, right?
Yeah, it's not hard. It's really easy. That's why a lot of people do it. It's super
What
easy.
sort of summer activities would you like to see added? Have you given that some thought?
Yeah, I think I'd want to have a field day of some sort, because that brings kids in, and if it could be by the pool, people could swim, people could throw the frisbee, throw a football, any sport that you're interested in, and also by the pool there's tennis courts, which could bring multiple activities on the tennis court. too.
Wow.
And I was part of the kickball tournament, and I thought that was a really good hit also. That was super fun. We could do other activities like that where it brings whole families in, because our team was made up out of my neighbors, me, our friends, and so it was super fun and a great way for all of us to
That's right.
involve. And we met the other teams and had a lot of fun.
How about a summer kickball league
That
for
would be really
teens?
fun too. I really think that would be super fun.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So where are you going to plan to go to high school at then?
I'm planning to go to Monarch because my brother and sister go to Monarch, and it's also a home school, so.
Okay, excellent. And so you will want to continue on?
Yeah.
You expect right now, barring any other more interesting opportunities, to continue on the Youth Leadership Council here in Superior?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So what did they tell you about the Youth Leadership Council?
Oh, my brother and sister are part of the Youth Leadership Council, and they love it. They always think it's super fun, and it's a great learning experience also. They get to have a voice, and they get to come to meetings, which are really official, and
Good.
they learn a lot.
This
from it.
family's taking over the youth leadership council.
Good.
That's great. Well, the final question is about conflict of interest. I doubt that's the
No.
case, but okay, just had
Not
to
on the
ask.
side business.
All
Oh, he's
right.
starting an Instagram training program. So yeah.
Well, the
They're
other
gonna
thing
charge
is,
us.
can you make Wednesday nights from
Yes,
6:30
I
to 8?
can. I'm really
That's-
loyal, and I can make Wednesday nights, and I can make volunteer activities.
That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very good.
Okay, thank you
Perfect
very
answer.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next is discussion of Town Center Parks 1 and 2 Final Development Plan.
He's going to give you a run for your money in 6 years. That's right.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight we've scheduled a review of the Parks 1 and 2 plans. These plans have been both to the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space and Trails Committee, as well as the Open Space Advisory Committee last month, I believe, and then we're scheduled to go before the Planning Commission. I have to look at the schedule. I think it's in September. But so with that, Patrick, introduction.
Good evening, Patrick Hammer, town staff, and I apologize for the setup. One of the presentation items tonight's a 3D fly-through, and for whatever reason, we couldn't get the laptop to connect to our computer, so I apologize.
Was Delta Airlines
Yeah,
involved?
that's right. But I've got a couple committee members, Sandy Hammerly and Corey Oxner from ProStack here tonight, and then Ken Lish from OSAC are in attendance tonight. We've been inclusive of all their recommendations throughout the process, as the presentation tonight really is kind of a culmination of the last 2 years' worth of work. And then the majority of the presentation will be done by Ian Anderson from Matrix. We got to a certain point with the 5 park designs, with design concepts, went out for an RFP early this year to take it from design to eventual FDP, factoring in all the design variables in terms of floodplain, environmental, as well as all the development opportunities that started to arise around the park. Hotel sites, Center Point, Creekview Way. Matrix has done a great job in really working with kind of a moving target to keep the project in complete compliance with all state, federal, local, as well as making sure that our park plan will tie into what we're seeing around the park. So with that being said, I think the best thing to do will probably be to kick it off to Ian. There will be a couple of times where we might need to navigate from the fly-through back to this presentation. We do have a copy of the last master plan that you guys viewed last year as a reference point. So you may see me kind of standing up and switching screens as Ian presents. But with that, I'd like to present Ian Anderson with Matrix Design Group.
Hello, thank you. My name is Ian Anderson. I'm a landscape architect with Matrix Design Group, and I'm the project manager for the Town Center Parks. And so we just wanted to run through a little bit of the background that we've been working on, and then take you into the model, do some 3D fly-throughs. We found that's a much better way to kind of help people understand some of the design. So clicking through slides, is that, where's that? Ah, right here, perfect.
You can just roll up, roll down.
Yep.
So there
Excellent.
you go.
All right, thank you. So here's where we are as it stands today in terms of the master plan, and this has changed a little bit, has evolved since you last saw what we would call the concept plan, and some things that we have learned along the way is when we caught wind of this project, we thought it was a great opportunity. We see the value in this park. It's really got one shot at this. This is what we consider to be the heart of Superior. And so we want to do this to the best and best use possible. And so we looked at the concept plan, and one thing that was missing out of that, and we understand why it was done that way, was just looking at the parcels, but Coal Creek was not really contemplated to be modified, integrated into the 2 parcels. It literally separated those parcels to some degree. And what we have looked at is looked at the Coal Creek itself and the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District, which is kind of the regulatory agency for drainage ways in the Denver metro area. They actually do things called master drainage way plans. So they look at all the different reaches of creeks and gulches, and they evaluated both in terms of hydrology and flooding and the hydraulics, the actual channel stability. And they did do a master drainage plan. They completed it in 2014. This segment of Coal Creek was included in that, and so they make recommendations for the long-term health and stability of Coal Creek. And what they said was it's not a 100% stable channel yet. They recommend kind of a desired slope to the creek, and what they said was ideally we'd like to see 3 3-foot drops put into this plan right between McCaslin and US 36. Now, they don't have to be 3-3-foot drops. They can be 9 1-foot drops. They can be 2 4.5-foot drops. And there's certain drop heights that allow for fifth passage and a healthy creek corridor. But we thought that was interesting, that there's a higher planning study of hydrology related to the park. Meanwhile, the town is doing their park and our park plan, and we thought, is there a way to marry these two up? And what that also does is if you can demonstrate to urban drainage and flood control that you are improving the channel, they will help you pay for it. And so we see them being as a partner to help us accomplish some of the things that we want to get done in this park. So when we talk about the MDP, we're talking about this document. Just do the scroll. This was the document done in 2014, but basically just saying you can see a little bit of what they look at as they look at bank stability, incised channels. The September 2014 flooding really beat up a lot of our drainage ways, and it took its toll here as well. What we've seen is some incised cut banks, and we have also lost the stream. It jumped out of its kind of main channel, and we call that braiding, create some kind of wetlands areas there. And so this is sort of how they look at it in these drainage plans, and looking at where the floodplain is, where the wetlands are, and what we're going to do that it would only improve that and not denude that in any way. Looking at different types of species that we're going to do, a lot of natives in here. We have some good existing canopy that we want to save to whatever extent possible. We'll be bringing in a palette of native materials, both ground plane and canopy, overstory, ornamental. And what we started looking at this is that there's kind of 3 segments of the creek through the park. We've got to cross it with Marshall Road, and in doing that, we're going to disturb that area. So we know we're going to be messing with the creek a little bit at the very least in the center. But then as it goes out from the Marshall Road crossing, that we really want that to be as a natural mountain stream corridor, a healthy riparian corridor that's supporting a lot of habitat, both plants and animals. So in those natural riparian corridors, we want it to look like this. We want places to be kids to come down and crawl around in the creek. We want natural drops. We want smooth granite boulders, and we want sandstone shelves and places for people to access and seating. But we don't want to engineer it too much. We want it to be natural. And then through this little segment that we have where we do actually have to harden up some of those edges where it's going to go under Marshall Road, is we think that's an opportunity to really give you what is Blue River to Breckenridge, or Clear Creek to Golden, or the Platte and Cherry Creek to Denver. This is your confluence park. This is your main venue, and it's a chance to show the recreation and the natural world kind of coming together harmoniously. So we think that's a great opportunity, that the bridge really presents itself. That crossing allows us to do this kind of work. We also want to do some nature play there. We want to thread in that play. We don't want just a little rubber tiled pocket off to the side. We want it to be seamless. We want that play to come down and engage with the creek. We want kids to get muddy in the creek but still be able to climb and do all the gross motor, the creative development, all that good stuff. So we think we can get all that in here. And really now there's a movement to actual nature play made with natural materials, actual real trees and rocks, and not this faux theme stuff that you see a lot. And there's a lot of studies that kind of play really benefits kids in a lot of different ways in terms of risk, in terms of connection with nature, making them better players, really. And so this was the plan that you guys had last seen it, and I wanted to just kind of hit on this, is that you can see some of the braiding of Cold Creek through here. Some of the
do you mind coming?
Created, but it was really a park and a park. It was 2 parks separated by a creek. And what we want to do is make the creek be that tie that binds. That really that is going to be this common thread and link that connects it all together. And again, you'll see this notion of that you have more of this passive. This is where there was going to be a stage. Maybe you can do a softball game, but it was much more passive use here and then high activity use here. And it's this crossing in the creek that really tie those two together, and we think that's a great opportunity. Yeah, so now we're going to just do a little bit of a switch here so we can show you guys a little bit more detail of what we're trying to do. Just gonna make it worse. There we go. So we started looking at how to make this crossing happen, and but the fact that we have a drainage way and a road, the road's higher than the drainage way. You have some slopes that are going to come down, and what you're going to have to do is, to some degree, there's some retaining that needs to happen on either side. Before the concept plan sort of contemplated a stage being out in the open space, but we really think that get that close to the creek so that you can have mom and dad are watching Shakespeare in the park and the kids are out playing in the creek, but everybody has a sight line on everybody else. And so we thought, bring that stage down closer to that wall. And on the same notion, that is, let me just click off this here, that we can build that stage into that wall, and just as we've done that on the west side, we would do it on the east side with the play. And so that what we have is you have a nice little plaza area here, maybe some kind of a water feature, maybe an interactive play feature, and you'll have to excuse some of the crudeness of the model because we're really fine-tuning things now, and we'll keep coming back to you with more detail until we get to that FTP. But ideally, that we want to build some access points. You have 2 stairs down either side. We hug that play, get a little teaser of it at the ground plane retail level, but then pull the people down through a series of terraces, of boulders, of logs, and embankment slides, and to bring them down to that creek edge where you really, the toy stuff, the catalog play goes away, and now it's about getting down and connecting with nature. So we have an amphitheater on one side, we have the play on the other, and we want to make this wonderful space in between. And so now that really puts an emphasis on the bridge, and we want that bridge to be a really iconic element. If you look at what the McCaslin Bridge over Cold Creek is, that's a pretty standard precast double T concrete structure. And that's the cheap way to do a bridge. It'll last a while and it's effective, but we're thinking, given that this is such a focal point to the park, and we are doing a bridge structure study for you to look at a range of structure types and costs, but we thought this is an opportunity here, and looking back at some of the old historic, the train history, the coal coming out of the mountains, and some of these mountain passes, and looking at those truss bridge structures and trying to bring that sort of historic element here. And what that's nice is that by putting more of your structure above the deck, it reduces the thickness of the deck, which gives us more clearance underneath there. So it's a win-win in that you get kind of the historic vernacular bridge, but you get more clearance below. And then the way to light this, to just do little washes of light in the evening, that would be an illuminated bridge. And under below as well as what we're seeing, we're doing some neat underpass stuff for the city of Westminster, bringing in artists to do murals and tile and lighting, that all of a sudden you have a public art opportunity under here as well. So then moving around, the retail side of things changed. Before this was at the concept plan, this was a playground. And then through some conversation with the developer, and we think it was a great idea to add what we would call this tavern on the green, for lack of a better word, some kind of great food and beverage, rooftop seating, hopefully, that could be your Wrigleyville, put some bleachers up there, you can watch the game down below. So we thought that was a great addition, but they were contemplating the building being here and the parking there, and just kind of a good urban design would be to flop that and put the building to hold that corner and activate that streetscape, have this nice interactive plaza that pulls you down into the park. But then what we do is we retain this edge along here to hold this parking up at street grade. So this is all a developer. This is a pad site right here. And really then our park kind of resumes back around these bleachers. is that now we've got this upper deck. This is special events. Maybe these guys close the parking and do a huge festival for the next big rugby event out here. So we really like the way that pad has set itself up now, and that then we can piggyback off this parking / drop-off and put what we're kind of calling this 50-yard line pavilion. And our architects are looking at this right now. We're proposing 2 structures, and we'll fly over to the other one. But this is more of a lighter, airy. Right now, what we're asking them is, do we enclose a portion of this? And the idea being that, one is it's concessions, pull power, pull water in. If we could do some roll-up windows, have something that could do some storage and be secured, that's a point of sale. That's an opportunity to feed into the activity of the game days. But also maybe potentially put scorekeeping up on the roof, that we could actually do some scorekeeping up there. The more we can provide that venue, the more of those types of events will come in. And so we think this is a really neat flex use kind of structure here that has some concrete bleacher seating in front of it that then kind of transitions to the natural slope. So that's that was sort of our pavilion piece here, and then sliding over to our next piece of architecture is this restroom building. And so this is going to be an enclosed, occupiable, plumbed restroom. We are looking to gang up some of the site electrical. You know, if you're going to do special events, you need to have show power out there and lots of it. So where we're going to tuck a lot of that and bring the conduits back, that, you know, in terms of special events, the more we can gang a lot of that stuff up here, the more events you'll be able to have on
Where
that.
is that restroom? I'm not placing it.
Oh, yeah, sure. It is right here. So there is our 50-yard line pavilion, and here's our restrooms.
That's the corner of McCaslin and Marshall.
Yes.
Where, right there,
Yes.
there, where it doesn't.
This is McCaslin. This is Marshall.
And so it's behind that pile of weeds and
Yeah.
branches and
There's
stuff,
your
which will
existing
become
pond.
a pond.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this, you know, Patrick and I have talked a little bit about the parking and the restrooms here, is that by creating this park, we feel pretty confidently that this is going to become a de facto trailhead, that you're going to get trail riders coming here and parking. We want to make sure that we're providing the parking to do that, and they're going to want to use the restroom. So we thought it made the most sense to keep all that here. I think the concept plan considered, would this also want to be a restroom? And that is something that we can look at in terms of cost. But our thought was, plumb this, spend the money here. You have some support from the town center when you get to this south side of the creek, such that we didn't think restrooms were as critical to have in this building as they were further away here to serve as the trailhead. So right now we are only contemplating plumbed restrooms in this building, and that's how we're proceeding, but we can certainly look at some opportunity to bring some additional restrooms in here as well.
That was never an optimal, especially if you're going to have a lot of people and possibly families or adults drinking at the, you know, if you can go into the tavern. I mean, we talked about a lot of different ways to put in bathrooms over there, but I think that restrooms have to be on both sides of the
Okay.
creek. Yeah, have to be. You know, whether you've got it underneath that concrete area, the wall that's holding up that tavern or someplace, but you got to have it in there.
Yeah, we're going to be real limited in there. Once you drop off that street level, you get down into the 100-year floodplain.
Yeah.
So putting that type of use, but absolutely, we can bring them in right here.
It's a long walk from that organized sports field to that other restroom. That's my only thinking. If somebody's got to go, it's a
It'll
long
never
haul to
happen.
go.
It'll be in the creek. Yeah, they'll be going. So
Well,
behind
yeah,
the
and
trees.
our thought was there's quite a bit of restrooms
Oh,
here.
they're not going to walk
Yeah.
across the street to go to the hotel. I mean, they're not going. That's not.
And I
A,
don't think that's
Understood.
that's not a very good
Yeah,
option.
sure.
Can you throw up the side where you were showing the tavern and the
Yes.
wall that's holding up the tavern?
Matt, did you have something to
No,
add
I
to
was
that?
just going to agree with the board. We will have a bathroom for Park 2 somewhere
Thank
near
you.
there.
Okay.
Right. So I was looking at that wall there, you know, which is, I guess, just the white, that. You know, I don't know if there's any place to put something underground there, you know, in the side of that hill. Because you can't tell by this. It looks like it might be possible, but I don't know.
Yeah.
asking questions now
Yeah.
Why don't we go ahead and get through the presentation,
Yes,
and then
Yeah,
we'll have
and
questions.
really, this is as much as set up as the model. We wanted to make sure to allow enough time for questions, so please.
Okay,
So,
okay.
Yeah, I have a quick question. First of all, I love what you've done. It's great work.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. In terms of the amphitheater and the play area right there, I understand what you're trying to do, pull it closer to the bridge, and that makes a lot of sense. I'm just wondering if the traffic, Shakespeare on the park, for example, if the traffic, the cars going over the bridge would, maybe compromise the ability of people to listen to whatever's taking place. Have you thought about that?
In terms of the optimal areas, let me zoom out a little bit here. Where we were looking to put that stage is all of your gradient. Let's back up even a little more here.
Do you know what I'm saying by that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's the best place to put a stage is at the low
Right.
end of the bowl. So that makes it anywhere along this creek, and really it's kind of in this area. We don't think this jump from here to there is going to be that much of a noticeable audio.
Okay.
That it wasn't that big of a jump, and that we got more. It was more advantageous to take advantage of those walls and that retaining to get the backdrop for that stage and get it close.
Yeah, as long as you consider that, I'm fine with it. Okay.
And we did looked at there's some opportunities to potentially put canopies over these someday too.
Oh,
And so we were actually looking at, could the bridge structure support that later? Because you could put a canopy on this end and a canopy on this end, and now you shaded your stage and your play.
And you've reduced some of the sound. I mean, you
Right.
can buffer some of the sound.
Absolutely.
I was thinking that same thing,
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
Could you point out on this where the existing Coal Creek Trail that connects east and west is?
So we tie to it right there, coming under McCaslin. We have realigned an ADA walk to get up to the parking lot. And so now the Coal Creek follows right along here to 36.
Nice.
So it stays on the north side the entire time. And what we want to do now is get some low water crossings to get that connectivity back to the south side. We want as much porosity between, you got to think not just horizontally getting across the park, but vertically. How do you change grade to get up on the street and back down, and how do you get ADA and all that good stuff?
Another question I had in the very first diagram, where you,
Well, then
Well-
you'd have to shut that off and
Oh.
go.
Oh, yeah.
So you can do it.
Yeah, we can
okay,
certainly
it
do that.
comes very close to the field that, on the northeast side of the field. So I'm wondering, does the field have to be cut back a little, or?
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. He's talking about right here.
So maybe we can just leave that up here for a second.
Oh, I'm very.
So are you talking about,
Yeah, up there.
yeah, it's tight, but we've got it to work. We have to realign, there's a ditch that has been dug, and kind of the existing ditch lops this corner off a little. So we have to regrade that ditch to get it in between that little throat. But it actually fits.
But it still fits in a way that it doesn't hurt the ecological concerns regarding the creek.
Correct, yes. We can kind of stay out of that riparian habitat, and get back to grade here. So we're actually in the process of coming out this week to survey any 6-inch or greater trees. We want to find all of our saviors out there, and
Yeah,
Right.
you've got a lot of work to do.
yeah, make sure that we keep those. There's a lot of scrub in there
Yeah.
too, and that's another thought is that if we don't start look at how we can bring the public to that edge, and if we were to stay out of it, because that's the other side of it, we could just say, look, let's not touch Coal Creek. Let's leave it in the braided streams, the inside channels, and maybe urban drainage will come to us later and want to do a project. You could stay out of that, but our fear is that if you build this and you build this, the people are coming, and they're going to find their way down to that water, and they're going to trample it. So we want to make sure that we're giving them those access points, but then quickly getting back to that natural, riparian, wooded, where the only walks through here will be small 2-foot crushed pines paths, nature paths, very primitive kind of walks that lead you to small sitting areas within there.
One, I love your creativity. we have been through several years of this, and I think you've added some great elements of excitement that we've been yearning for and
Thank
haven't
you.
seen. So
Thank
thank
you,
you for
actually.
doing that. Secondly, I'm the OSAC liaison, and Ken Lish is here, and I'm sure he's going to come up on public comment on this. OSAC has been crying for recognition of the gem that Coal Creek Corridor is and can provide and must be preserved for this community. And needless to say, the last meeting when they looked at your plan, they were extremely excited about that. I'll let Ken articulate all that. So I'm going to go to some of the things that were brought up that I want to make sure are discussed in a public meeting. One, we're all very familiar with Boulder Creek and the picnic areas and the manicured grass opportunities to just throw a blanket down, et cetera. And so this plan, for those of you not as closely familiar with the OSAC request, you know, it puts a path in front of the creek from the town side here. Very exciting. But nonetheless, we're a little worried about opportunities to throw that picnic blanket down. And the committee hoped that there were ample benches and seating up here. But the request was put out that here, where you have the grassy connections, those in the long ago plans were native, which means unable to throw a picnic blanket down. So what type of grass are you contemplating in here?
Yeah, it's this area and this area, we want it to be very native. So we're not proposing mowed bluegrass or fescue,
Okay.
any kind of a manicured turf. We want that to be what we would call a riparian woodland,
Right.
overstory canopy, and then understory native grasses, tall grasses, and then a number of sand cherry shrubs, ground covers, that kind of thing. But then what we'll do is braid in some walks through there, nature walks, 2 foot wide, no hardened surfaces, anything like that.
Where can I throw my picnic blanket next to Coal Creek?
So just about anywhere on this edge, there's some really nice areas here and all through here. We can carve some of those out here, but we were trying to stay out of these two areas too much to leave them in that native riparian character.
Well, I'm going to let you, obviously you're very familiar with the acreage we've got to work, but where we can wisely, not force them in, but where they naturally fit, keep in your mind it's nice to have places with that you can throw a picnic blanket or let toddlers barefoot, you know,
Yep.
interact.
Yes.
Water flow, that was a big discussion point at OSAC. This isn't at all as appealing if it's dry as if you've got
Right.
some water in it. So I want somebody at some point to address the water flow issue.
Yes.
Is that something you can address?
Yeah, we have to look at hydrology and hydraulics. So we're looking at the floodplain, the 2, the 5, the 10, the 100 year. Where does all that water go? When we build this park and it floods, what happens?
Well, I want water flow in it day in and day out
Yeah. So
to a degree.
at a very high hydraulic level or hydrology level, we look at that. Then we get right down into the channel. What is that with? Where are the drops? But you actually have a pretty good amount of CFS, cubic feet per second, of a base flow. You're not gonna. It's not like, say, Little Dry Creek in Westminster that there's at the peak of August there's about 2 inches across 10 feet. You've got pretty good volumes coming through here. I would put them around 100 CFS, but we're still pushing the hydraulics
Okay,
out.
because at one point we even talked about manipulating the upstream a little bit to actually put more water into it in the drier months. And we discussed that in OSAC. I don't know where that discussion ever went. I'm talking as much to Patrick behind you as I am to you because I think to make it optimally successful, there will be some nice water in there. Of course, I don't want it to flood either, but I do want it to have water in it because that's just much more fun and appealing.
Absolutely.
The 9-foot drops, can you use your pointer to tell us where they'll occur?
Oh yeah, so that's a very broad, big picture drop. As they say, you need about a 0.6% slope and about 3 3-foot drops, or 9 vertical feet of drop. So when they do their plan, if you pulled the MDP, they put one about here, one about here, and one about here. And I think it's just segmented, third, and third. So our drops all start from this crossing to this one. So what we're trying to do is create a natural riffle pool glide. So you get the drops, you get the riffles, then that usually there's a pool, a ponding area, and then that moves and glides down. So we want to create that natural rhythm of riffle pool glide. And so we're looking to these be 1 foot to 18-inch drops each, so that we'll have some slope here, but then where the people are, where the action is, where you want people sitting, that's where we want all the water churning and the sound. Right. So we've actually, and given that we're coming through with this crossing, it is advantageous that as we look at the disturbance area to build this bridge, if we can keep that fairly tight, and the concept plan only imagined about an acre, less than an acre disturbance. As we start to pull that channel down a little, we will expand that disturbance area, but all those drops are right through the sweet spot.
Okay. Cottonwoods are the nemesis in some yards in this community, et cetera. Can we skip the cottonwoods, or why the cottonwoods?
That urban drainage likes cottonwoods, and it's because they do so well. They're weak wooded, they're messy, but they hold slopes very, very well. So cottonwood and willow, they're less enamored with willow. They like cottonwood because it doesn't.
But what about a cottonwood when you have a huge field that you intend to have playable a lot?
Yes.
Because it just distributes that white all over.
It does.
What's your attitude about that?
We will. We'll minimize that. There are some other species we can do, but I don't think we're going to get through urban drainage or the Army Corps of Engineers without putting they're native riparian trees, and we're going to try and convince them that we're doing this in a very natural manner. It would be hard to totally eliminate that.
We don't want you to have a vacuum out there,
Yes.
before a game, having to get rid of the lint or
Yes.
whatever the junk
Yes.
is, what you call that.
That's a good point.
I think it's called cotton. Hence,
Cotton.
cottonwood.
Cotton lint, whatever. I happen to really like your concept here of not going with a playground in the traditional sense, but to actually use the slope to do fun things. I am a big fan of the interaction. Clear Creek and Golden down there, where they actually have that slide right into the water.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of that. I'd like to hear the committee members talk about that. And I happen to think that this is nicely situated and exciting. And certainly Marshall here is not going to be any louder than Broadway down on campus. But another big bugaboo is seating adequacy. We've got this gigantic field. We're talking tournaments, and you got those few little seats there. How do you see seating working?
Yeah. So. Yeah, we actually pulled some numbers on this. So we took all the linear feet of these concrete benches and divided that by 18 inches, because that's about one person. And we had, make sure I got my numbers right here for you. We had 582 seats just in the concrete benches here. Then we looked at the turf areas, what I would consider usable turf slope. This is a ditch. That's not that usable in my book. So this turf area and this is a very nice, gentle slope down to the field. We took all that square footage, divided that by 12 square foot per person. That's roughly, for kind of sitting down blankets versus a stand-up, it would be about 7 square foot per person. So we added up those, this area and this area, and we got to 1,800 people there, so plus the 580, so you're at around 2,400 now, and then and that is just spectators around the field. Then if you want to look at doing a concert out on the field, you could divide that out in the same manner. You could get 7,500 people on the field on for a special event.
Wonderful, but absolutely necessary to have a bathroom close by for all those people.
Sure.
Okay.
And another thing here is that by flattening these decks up here, is you could put temporary bleachers up there, bring in the aluminum stuff, set them up so that you get that much more capacity. And we've done that in other parks as well, where you can just kind of give them that flat hunk of land.
Okay.
You can do some temp setup as well.
And then two more things. ProStack said in their comments, and it came up in OSAC as well, adequacy of car parking. How are we going to handle the vehicles?
Yes. So we have increased the parking from what the concept plan was. There was a smaller lot that was contemplated right up here. We, given this pond, and we, this pond is a little bit of an enigma, and that it was here before Marketplace, and the Marketplace did a lot of their stormwater BMPs, and so we're not sure that that pond needs to be there or to that size. But point being, it's there now, and we're going to assume it's there, and then we have to then drop the grade down. So what we did is we took advantage of what is a natural bench there and ran that parking out. So we grew the parking from a smaller lot here to tripling it and running a right in, right out onto
So how many
McCaslin.
cars?
Oh, man, I should have had that number in my head. I'll get that to Patrick. But we thought, given the trailhead potential for this, that we needed to increase that there. Before, we only had angle along the street, 2 pockets here and here. We've now added the off-street and picked up some additional parking there. Technically, that's the developers. You know, I think that is going to be sold, that's going to be this pads and less our park and more their business, I'm guessing. And then stretch these as much as we could get there. So we have been trying to squeeze it as much as we can. There are general per acre numbers that we can look at to just kind of rule of thumb it to try and dial that in and get that.
Well, I have to say, just so staff's hearing, I'm very concerned about adequacy of parking. I think we have increased it, but I still don't think it's sufficient, and I would like to see a parking plan if we're having these big events.
There's going to be parking on Block 7 as well, or parking structure.
Right. Yeah, that's
point
what I
to
was
it.
going to point to this
Down
bottom-
here?
But, no, over here. In the next one over to the left, that one and the next one. Those are going to be parking, public parking lots. So it's just how you get from them. I think that was one of the comments I was going to make, is make sure that there's an adequate.
Easy
Can you say?
way?
Easy. Reasonable.
Efficient.
Easy to find and
Yes.
figure out a way to get from those parking lots over to the Park 2 area. There has to be like a trail or a sidewalk or a nice way to actually get out of there.
Absolutely.
And
There's about 100 plus
I'm going to do it quickly here because I know we're running out of time. But I think you're absolutely correct. The treatment of this bridge structure, very important. We go back to, when we did the Oz plan, we really spent a lot of time looking at the beauty of that. And being a big fan of the arches over 36 and the gateway to Boulder Valley as our trademark, I want to be sensitive about more arches. I'm thinking, are more arches good or more arches too repetitive? I haven't settled in my mind yet, but I like your thought
How
process.
about suspension?
Well, I would like, I think it has to be iconic, and I want to see what comes forth. Give us a couple of options.
Can we do a zip line off of it?
Yeah.
I want to make this point because you mentioned parking, and it's one that we talked about with the special events folks, that they really liked it. Well, one thought of this bridge is that you would close it from right here to right there, load up the tents, the festival, the lighting, face painting, beverages, that this becomes the promenade, the arcade, that activity center. So lighting up the bridge and that structure, we really think this is your festival street. It's the heart of the park. And so that was, and the special events folks, that one of the reasons to get that right in, right out is that if we can close this but still get the hotel guys in, still get the trail riders to go in, maybe you park it, maybe you don't park it and you take that into the event. But just something that I didn't mention that earlier. I want to make sure that was a point there.
I have a question about park number one. Originally, it had a image of a baseball diamond in it. Is the topography still such that that could be done there?
We have a softball diamond skewed in that north by northeast, but we fit a small softball, I think 220-foot outfield. Small, but it'll do your intramural job. Yeah.
Good.
I have a few
Right.
quick. Okay, so this pond here doesn't have water in it really at all. I mean, it's got a little bit. So I'm happy to hear you say that you're not sure why that is, what it is. So if there is going to be water in it, how's it going to get filled? Not, I don't need an answer, I just add that as a question.
Yep.
If we don't have water in it, let's make it as small of an area as possible, maybe put in more parking in there if you can. There's about 100 spots plus, I counted them quickly, in this area here to here. Where does this path lead to here?
That gets you back up to McCaslin, south of the creek. So
Okay,
we wanted
goes you
just
up to
get
the
a little,
sidewalk?
Yeah, we wanted
Okay.
to pull. I don't know. That could go away and wait till there's a demand, but we thought it was necessary.
Right, because it's on the other side of the creek, so that's good. This field was in the original plan 400 by 210. What is it now? Is it smaller than that, or is that about the size?
No, it's still that's about the 100 meter by 70 meter equates to that after you had your touch lines. So we're still at a IRB, International Rugby Board standard field, which is those dimensions.
Okay, great. Then this tavern here, I like the idea when you moved it over into this corner, and the connection to public parking. Again, there has to be a way to let people know that they could park over here or here, you know, and to get over to there or to be able to park their car. So make sure the connection and the wayfinding points are
Yes.
appropriate. And then, because there's really no parking hardly at all along the park anymore. There's just a drop-off area right here, according to what I'm looking at, and like a dozen spots right here. So there's really no parking by that park at all. And then, just a second, okay, that one I got rid of, I already did that one. This one here, drop-off spot. The only drop-off spot for this whole area is just right here, which is kind of a drop-off for the tavern and for the park. Is that correct? There's no way to have a drop-off over here somewhere because of the ditch in here and stuff? Again, it's
Yeah.
more of a question. It's not looking for
Yeah.
an answer at the
Yeah,
moment.
sure.
I'm just looking for another place to drop people with gear off. And that was a big thing about, even at Buller Valley Ice, we took the parking lot spots away out front in order to be able to have a drop-off.
So maybe we can give them a little bump out right here.
Yeah, if there's some way you could drop off right there at the field, in and out, in and out. And then bike path connection, it ends here, but it's actually going to go
Yeah, right.
behind there. So I just
Yeah.
want to make sure that that was.
We'll get the hotel
Yeah,
plan in there.
yeah,
as well.
so, and I think that's, and I want to say too, first time I'm excited about a truly creative plan that listened to what everybody's been saying, not only us up here, but residents and the committees, and I applaud you for coming to us with something that we can build upon without having to tear it down first.
Well, thank you. We're very excited about this project. This is a good one. You get one shot at it, right?
Great. I know we want to hear from any public and also committee members, but we do need to wrap up the work session. We'll invite people to stay after and speak at public comment if they'd like to. So maybe Matt could close us out by just kind of reminding us of next steps and so on for this project.
Take some public comment in the last 5 minutes?
We-
Or?
We could,
All right.
yeah.
I mean, the next step is for a planning commission review, and then it'll come back to the town board.
Okay.
And the bridge
Right.
piece, the board's going to see an final development plan for Marshall Road extension. It's coming forward, but it doesn't include the bridge. So right now, Marshall Road will extend towards the creek, but stop dead end, and then the bridge FDP will come back at a future date.
I did have one question about the urban drainage involvement. Has there been any overtures made to them about this plan and
Yeah,
that they would,
yeah, they've been in discussions with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has there been discussion with the developer, the master developer, about
Yeah.
moving that tavern over to moving it?
Well, I don't know about
the-
that block.
to the west.
But they're
I think Bill Jenks, though, said that he thought that was a good idea,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they would work
yeah.
with that,
Okay.
so, yeah, right.
Okay. Okay, why don't we take a 5-minute break and then we'll be back at 7 o'clock.
One comment, I just want to remind everyone that the street, Marshall Road, and the bridge have nothing to do, the monies don't come out of any of this park development. That comes from the TIF and associated with the developers, tax increment financing. So, and when we talk about that bridge and everything, that'll come not out of the pot of money for this, but it'll come out of the money that's used for building the streets and the bridges within the town center. So, we shouldn't get that muddied up and try to figure out how we're going to pay for that bridge. That bridge comes out of the other TIF money.
That's true.
Okay, good reminder. Okay, we'll be back at 7 o'clock. The regular meeting of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees for August 8th, 2016. Could we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Phyllis, could we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Clint Folsom.
Here.
Trustees Joe Sorelli.
Here.
Rita Dozell.
Here.
Elia Gagaris.
Here.
Chris Hansen. Sandy Pennington.
Here.
Town Manager Matt Bagley.
Here.
Town Attorney Kendra Carberry.
Here.
Town Clerk Phyllis Harden here.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda, and we do have one change to the agenda, staff recommendation and board encouragement to pull 13D, or I'm sorry, 13F off of the, so we're going to pull 13F. Any other?
Off the agenda.
Off the agenda, yes. Any other?
Yeah, I want to pull 13G.
Okay.
I would like to have town manager give an explanation of why we're pulling
Yes,
that off
that
of there,
was-
or the mayor, whichever.
We can both.
Yeah, okay.
I'll
Thank
let
you.
the town manager speak to
Yeah, it was after some emails received by myself. There's some confusion about what the ordinance was envisioned for. There's a discrepancy in the town code and the fine schedule that the judge can apply in court. He's granted through state statute what he can apply in court up to a certain dollar amount, and that what's in the town code is different. It's for any animal-related issue, not one specific issue. So that was the reason. It was more of a cleanup item. I think there was some confusion about what it was about, that it was about one single issue, which it's not. It was brought up by court staff to initiate this process. So staff recommend that we pull it for tonight, may or may not come back in the future. Need to talk to the court judge and see what he wants to do, but that was the reasoning behind the ordinance and the reason for staff recommending that it be removed from the agenda tonight.
Yes. Yeah, and just to reiterate, it was not something driven by any single issue, any single person, or anything like that. So that just needs to be made clear. There seem to be some misunderstandings about that, but it was, and perhaps that should have been, spelled out differently in the court, in the staff memo, and so that's the reason for pulling that item. And recognize that some folks are probably here to speak to that, and you're certainly welcome to give any comments at public comment. That's what public comment's for. Whether or not something's on the agenda, you're always welcome to speak at public comment. So we welcome any comments that you may have, and just ask that people be civil and decent in their comments, and appreciate that. So any further changes to the?
I was just going to say that this is also board directed. I mean, we agree on the board to give that feedback to staff to pull it.
Yes.
Well, and also that we didn't ask for this change as a result of, or as an impotence from any other discussions. We didn't even know about it. It came from the court. So I think let's be clear about that. And then the other thing that I'd like to tie up a little bit is, when do we talk about this issue the next time that seemed to be the fire kind of relit itself again, associated with areas for dogs to run free. So we need to get that scheduled sometime on somebody's calendar.
So the direction from the board on that, last time it was discussed, was for the board to discuss it at a work session and have someone from, I think, the city of Boulder, it was, Parks Department,
That's
to talk
right.
about their program. We're looking at September 26th or October 10th. We just need to narrow down the date that works for the city of Boulder staff. As soon as I have that, I'll let the board know when we have that scheduled for a work session.
Okay, and I think that's important for all of you to know that we are, it may not move as fast as you'd like to see it move, but we have discussed it a couple of times at retreats and work sessions, and we are still requiring or requesting that it move forward, so we'll have that discussion. But as the mayor said and others, we definitely will take any input, particularly if you came, you know, we'd like to have you have the opportunity to speak. We always like to get to know more people too, their faces rather than just their names when they send an email. So thank you.
Okay, good points. Thank you. All right, we're still on approval of the agenda. So any further changes to the agenda? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, motion by trustee Guevara, second by trustee Pennington. All those in favor? Okay, passes unanimous. All right.
Wait, did somebody pull 13G?
Yes,
Yes.
trustee Pennington. So the agenda is approved with 13F removed entirely and 13G pulled by trustee Pennington. Okay, we're on to reports, questions, and issues. Who would like to start?
I hope everyone had a nice summer. It's been a while since I've seen you, so I don't have anything to report other than I know I'm term limited and I'm exiting in November, but I'm not sure why I get moved to the side here. For the first time in 10 years, I'm sitting all the way to the right. So, how did that come about?
You're on the
Who
way
knows?
out, I guess.
I am on my way out. That's for sure.
Delia, that's a first base position,
First
and I'm on
base.
third base. So,
Oh,
you
yes.
know,
Yes.
you're the first hitter, and I'm the
There you
cleanup
go.
hitter. So there we go.
All trustees never die, they
They
just
just
fade
keep
away.
moving to the right. All right, so trustee.
How it
Pennington.
happened is somebody moved me into Deb's former real estate at the last meeting because you were gone.
I see. Okay.
Ah.
It shows you never miss a meeting. Never know what happens.
That's right.
I actually have a number of things. I have two nephews who are visiting me from Spain, who are 11 and 13 years old, and so it's been a long time since I've participated in youth events like soccer camps and all that kind of stuff. But they attended Marcel Balboa's soccer camp, the last iteration of it, and I have to say what a treasure we have in this town with Marcel Balboa. And I know there was a conversation a couple of years ago at least, on and more soccer amenities in this town, and this caused me to think about them. So I hope, is Patrick still in the room? I hope that he watches this and it's conveyed to him. I do think there is an opportunity for more conversation regarding the soccer amenities in this town. Because Coach Balboa, I think, is interested in doing more with the town. So compliments to staff who were there. Lydia and Patrick were there. Marcel Balboa himself. Issue was raised about the heat coming off that synthetic turf. I was not aware that synthetic turf gains 10 or 15 degrees, and we were playing in 96-degree temperatures. And literally when we went to pick the boys up, it was so brutally hot, you can't imagine it. Well, apparently in Spain, they missed the fields to bring the temperature down, to make them playable. It's mandated to make them humane. And so that conversation was had, but I'd sort of like our staff to investigate whether or not that's something we can do or not. Yes or no, there may be different practices in the two countries, but it was brutally hot. Those kids were just sweating up a storm, so that as well.
And we've had an unusually hot summer. I mean,
Right.
typically you don't have 2-3 months straight of 90-degree weather,
But
so
it's in
that's
a
unusual.
little bit of
but
a bowl down there too. You know
Yeah,
how
that's
you have
true.
it's so.
It's worth exploring.
Yeah, it's worth exploring. National Night Out attended it, and that's always a blast. Compliments to our security. What do we call that collective? All the sheriff's department and the fire department and our protective services for putting that thing out. Again, I had the boys from Spain with me, and they said they never get to get close to their policemen. It's an adversarial relationship. And they tried on the SWAT uniforms and went in all the trucks and did the fire hose and all that kind of stuff. And it was just, I was proud. I'm like, well, here we try to have a friendly relationship, right? So that was great. Happened to go over to the park and ride today for a different purpose, but that lot is totally packed with cars. And there has been a discussion of the adequacy of that parking. And I think we need to put that on our radar, because the fact is, if you can't find a place to park there, you're not going to use the service. So I think we do need to monitor that saturation of that parking lot. And, do we need to be doing something creative or whatnot because you can hardly get out of your car and take a bus if you can't, find a place. Now, the call-in ride is a good thing, but when my husband went to the airport this morning at 5:30, the call-in ride wasn't operational to take him in time. So anyway, wanted everybody's attention on the Star Party Friday at 8 to 10 p.m. being put on by Parks and Rec. It's concurrent with a meteor shower or something like that, so I just didn't want anybody to miss it.
Concurrent with movie night?
Is it concurrent with movie night too? Well, hopefully we have enough residents interested in both, but I just thought it was cool. And about the confluence of it with a major astronomical event. Second to the last is I saw some kids dangerously trying to cross Colton, roughly at the entrance to, what's that called, Rock Creek Plaza? Rock Creek Village, at the, where you enter to go to Community Park. And I do think it's time for Traffic and Safety Committee to study possibly putting a crosswalk in there.
They weren't using the traffic signal at Rock Creek Circle?
Yeah, there's a traffic signal.
No, she's talking about farther west.
Yeah, farther
Where
west.
You're coming from Academy.
Yeah,
where you
they were
turn right
coming
into
from
the
Saddle,
Community Park.
from between Rock Creek Parkway and there, sort of, and they were just,
Between Indiana and Rock Creek Circle?
no, Rock Creek Circle, yeah, well,
Yes.
yes, and there is Rock Creek, the Rock Creek Circle light, but they were dangerously crossing right at what did you call it, Rock
Rock
Creek?
Creek Circle.
No, the shopping center.
Oh, Rock Creek Village.
And I've seen it too often that I think maybe we need to drive it and think about. I know Alex mentioned this some other venue, and I thought, well, it's not necessary, but now I think it may be necessary for safety, and again, we have heavy ticketing close to Rock Creek Circle for speeding. And I think yet another impediment on Colton might slow the whole road down so that we don't,
So there's a light at both ends of Rock Creek Circle, on the west
Right,
and
I
then
think
at
she's
and
talking in
Rock Creek
between
Parkway,
the two
so
lights.
you're talking
That's a
about
long distance.
It is a long
It's a
distance.
long distance.
Right, but
Boulevard in between there too. It'd be hard to cross there anyway,
Yeah.
isn't there? I don't know.
Well, anyway, I think we need a little field trip for traffic and safety out there to look at it. Plus, I have to say, I continue to be annoyed at all. It seems like we're targeting Rock Creek Circle intersection on Colton once again for lots of traffic tickets. And we have a whole town to monitor. Let's just be fair. That's what I ask.
Seems to
I-
be fruitful.
Sergeant Chamberlain's here. He can speak to it. We've shown you the data that shows you that they're equally on Rock Creek Parkway as well as Colton Road and McCaslin.
Well, that was the
Um,
last traffic
so,
results, and I agree with that.
We're talking about safety and people crossing Colton Road, but then we're talking about people speeding on Colton.
Right. But they're speeding
You
all over
can't-
town. We don't have any more speeders down there, I would bet, than every place else. And it's dangerous on Rock Creek Parkway.
I'm happy to share with the
et cetera.
board again the times that the sheriff's department is on the various roads. So you can see
I
it.
do want to see those. But we have three officers.
Because they're down in original
Patrolling
town
the whole
as well, on Coal Creek Drive, because we get complaints there. On
You know I'm going to be
Caslin,
watching, so.
Fulton.
You know, I want to keep us safe, but I don't want an undue tax on people who live in certain areas of town.
Don't speed. It's simple.
I avoid it, frankly. I go
Wait,
the other way.
And we put a speed display sign on Colton Road.
I
To
appreciate
try
it.
to give people an
I-
opportunity
I'm just telling
to
you.
slow down.
Okay, now I
So-
want to talk a little bit about 13F, the leash, the the rate increase or whatever for potential violators of animal infractions. I really would like, if need be, perhaps we need to discuss this at a retreat. But when we put things on the agenda, the process by which we put them forth is very important. And I felt that that unduly inflamed the community. And unnecessary inflammation of the community annoys me because it's usually a process error. And so I would encourage us, as often as we can, to address this issue of process. How do things come to be put on our agenda? And why are trustees surprised by things that are on the agenda? I don't think trustees should ever be surprised by something on the agenda. I was surprised by that, and frankly, I was surprised by the golf cart and slow, whatever that thing was called, electric vehicle thing.
Yeah.
I was surprised by that, and those are both two matters that I think really can seriously impact this community. So I don't think we have to address it tonight or solve it tonight, but I'm just saying, as one trustee on this panel up here, I do not like to be surprised by agenda items.
So, although I agree with you, Trustee Pennington, just to put this into perspective, we have 26 agendas per year. I've been here for 10 years, so that's 260 agendas. We're rarely surprised. I think for the most part, like 95% of the time, we know what's coming up. So, in this time, it wasn't necessary. It inflamed a lot of passion in the community. I totally agree with you. But I think that's more the exception than the rule.
Well,
so.
and the board had requested a while back that I put future agenda topics in my weekly digest to the board. I have started doing that. These issues were in those reports, and I would hope that you, if you have a question, you would email me or call me and ask what they're about and if they're needed, and if the board would like to have a discussion prior to them coming to the board, we can do all those things. So,
And I agree that one about the golf carts and the slow moving electric vehicles was in there. That it's been in there noticing us that it's coming up. So that one has been there. Maybe you just missed it because we didn't have another meeting last month at the end of the month, but it has been in the digest.
Let me be a little more explicit without taking more than 10 more seconds. I would like to see the preliminary draft somehow before it becomes a final draft to understand whether or not what's coming forth in fact captures the previous discussion. When they don't, it's just unnecessary discussion at this level when I think it may be more appropriate in a retreat or something else. So it's as much that as anything else. So I would agree with you that I have heard smatterings in the weekly digest, but I still never expected them to come forth in the manner they came forth, the timing they came forth, and with the content they came forth with. So I'm just speaking for myself.
Okay, anything further?
No.
Okay, Trustee Sorelli?
I've been away and I don't really have anything to report,
Okay.
except I had a good time.
That's good. Trustee Dizelle?
I haven't been away. I wish I would have been away. Anybody want to take me away? I'll go. Okay. I just say that a final word about what Sandy was talking about. Some of our staff memos have been, and tonight even, were very full of rich information, and others were very limited in the description about what we've, kind of passed, how we got to this point. So we just need to do a little bit better job. I'm saying all of us, on how we describe why we're doing it and what the genesis for these things are. And when we say we're replacing something, I'd like to see what we're replacing instead of just what it's been replaced with. Okay, now I'll go into my reports. Okay, on July 20th, I attended a Dr. Cog, Denver Regional Council of Governments Finance and Board meeting. And the thing I wanted to bring out here, and it really won't impact all of your daily lives, but what Dr. Cog is looking at is spending $250 million of federal funds every 4 years to help improve mobility within the Denver metro region. And they're creating now the Dr. Cog board, and there's 56 elected officials that are on the Dr. Cog board, and I represent the town of Superior. They're working on a 2030, that's 2030, mobility blueprint, and they're identifying future workforce mobility needs, because what they're recognizing, CDOT, RTD, and a lot of the communities are recognizing that we're spending a lot of money, but we're not really improving mobility. In many ways. We're adding new bridges and we're adding new lanes and all this. And what they're finding is that the thing that's really helping the most is when they do a partnership and add managed lanes, which are really toll roads. Think of it that way. You're managing the flow of the traffic by charging people based on the time of day and the event that they're going to. And they're also thinking that in the future, that millennials will not drive the way we all drive. Millennials being the 18 to 25 kind of age people that are out there now, and they're saying that by 2040 there will be nobody that has a driver's license. They will be riding around in autonomous vehicles, which are not, that are, nobody drives them, the computer drives them and all that. But it's pretty fascinating, some of the information that we're getting out. And CDOT has a Road X vision, which is really basically taking cars as we know them today off of the highways and basically have mass transit, bicycle, pedestrian ways, and then also to have autonomous vehicles. So if you want to look at some of that stuff, you can go on the Dr. Cog website and look at CDOT website, and it's pretty fascinating if you're into those kind of things. The other thing that I was at a Dr. Cog workshop then in Breckenridge this Friday and Saturday, and they showed us a picture of what the future will look like in 2030 or 2040 with all these autonomous cars, driverless cars riding around in buses and everything. And the first and last mile is the important part. And I come from the communications world, the telephone company world, and we always worried about the first and last mile of fiber, getting fiber to the home. Well, this is the same way. How do you get mass transit to the home? The first and last mile. Just like we were talking about, Sandy was talking about her husband trying to get to the park and ride. So, and at 5:30 in the morning, there isn't the call and ride isn't available until 6. So they're saying that we will all be, the vision is that we will all be calling up this autonomous vehicle to come up to our door, and we'll get in it, and it'll take us to our park and ride or our bus stop or to our train. So it's pretty interesting. And the piece that was very fascinating for me was I sat there and they showed a picture on the wall of a Popular Science magazine article that depicted the reality of today's mobility. GPS mapping, smart cars, smart information, traffic flow information provided to the cars, bus rapid transit, automated braking, lane control, blind spot monitoring, autonomous personless vehicle driving, driverless vehicles. And this was from the Popular Science magazine of May of 1938. And I have a picture of it here if you want to see it. But May of 1938, they showed a picture of how we would be in the future, and it's exactly what we're seeing should happen in the next 25 years. So it's kind of fascinating, some of the things that are happening. Okay. Then there's going to be a Small Communities Hot Topics Forum on September 15th that Dr. Cog is doing, and we need to make sure that someone from our staff is attending that. Bike to Work Day was the best ever again. Bike to Work Day put on by Dr. Cog and the Mobility and 36 Corridor people and all of this. We were the #2 nation in the nation, #2 city in the nation for having the number of bike riders going to work on that day in June. We're #2 to San Francisco. San Francisco was the #1 city, and we're #2. The Denver metro area is #2. July 21st, I was on a Louisville Library Board meeting that I now attend. Deb Williams was our representative. But we will be looking for, and I believe we should talk about this, but we have the ability to have residents, or at least one resident, be on that library board. So I think we should really look for a resident to add to that board. They would be interested in that too, the Louisville Library. Not just to have one of us, like me, be there, but because their town council representative can't vote. I get to vote because I'm considered an actual voting member, but their representative from Louisville can't. I think we should consider putting a resident, and if anybody wants to volunteer to be on that board, it meets every other month. The other thing is that what's pretty cool about the Louisville Library, if you haven't been there recently, and 9,620 checkouts happened last month, or in the month of June, out of the Louisville Library, and we were 21%. That represented 21%. Those are Superior residents checked out 9,620 items out of the Louisville Library in the month of June, and we were 21% of those. You can check out telescopes if you want to look at the Perseid meteor showers going on. They have two satellite, or not satellites, that telescopes that you can check out. They have a digital SLR camera. All the equipment, everything donated by Mike's Camera, or local residents of ours. Recording sound equipment that you can go and record your next musical event, or if you want to put together a demo tape for somebody. They have a GoPro camera that they'll let you take out and go right up and down the hills here, or the trails or the mountains. Colorado State Park Pass backpack is still available. You can go any state park with this backpack, and you can go there for free. You take it for a week, so you can go camping. And they're also looking for people who would like to help with putting together a partnership with the Vista Hospital to provide newborn book bags. Every year, 2,500 babies are born here at Vista Hospital. And their Louisville Library is looking at providing a book bag for those babies, their first book, and maybe their first library card and all this kind of stuff. And they need people to help figure out how to get sponsors and funding and all of that. And I know Heather, I think, was here, Craycraft from Chamber. We're going to talk to her about how the Chamber might be able to help with that as well. There's some really fun things happening over there. And hopefully, eventually, we want to have an extension of some of that activity happen here in the Superior Town Center. When we get it built, we want, and get our community center there, we want to have that there. Okay, I also would like to have the Superior Youth Leadership Council provide input to Louisville Library as to what would make it a better experience for the youth. So maybe, Elia, you could put that on one of their next meeting to talk about how could we get more youth, or what would be better. Now that we have the call and ride, hopefully the call and ride will take them over to the library. Our call and ride. August 2nd, I attended the National Night Out and loved the dancing by the Boulder County Sheriff deputies and officers. Very nice. I don't think I saw you, but I saw everybody else out there. It was very cool. And then August 3rd, I went to the Boulder County Consortium of Cities meeting in the Boulder courthouse. And they're focusing, public health is on creating environments for healthy eating, mental health, and substance abuse. And they have many programs on making choices not to abuse substances for both youth and adults. They're not saying don't use substances, but don't abuse them is what their point is going to be. And they're going to come out with a program very soon that is lock up your guns, lock up your liquor cabinets, and for God's sakes, lock up your marijuana. Because too many children are getting into the supplies, the marijuana supplies of the adults. Another important point that I didn't realize at this meeting is that the Boulder County will match SNAP dollars, those are the food assistance dollars, at farmers markets in Boulder and Longmont. There's a booth there that you can actually go up, and if you want to use $20 of your SNAP money for that month, you'll get $20 additional dollars that you can use to buy foods and vegetables at the Boulder and Longmont markets. And I think someday, if we get a market here, we should do something similar to that. It would be very good. And And then we're going to also, they're going to set up a one-day planning session on chronic housing issues and opportunities, and we need to make sure we have staff attend that as well. And then, then Wednesday at 10 o'clock, I'll be with the Superior Youth Leadership Council in the community park for story time from 10 to 11 a.m. And Sandy, are you going to go with me? Okay.
Am
So-
I invited?
Yeah, there's someone told me we needed two. I said, call Sandy. And so anyway, so if anybody's around and not doing anything, Wednesday, this Wednesday, August 10th, we're going to be doing story time from 10 to 11. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for indulging us with all these announcements. It's been a month since we've been together, and we just can't help ourselves. So, a lot to talk about. I want to welcome back Call and Ride. The Call and Ride service is a service of RTD where you can call the driver and they will come get you at your door and take you somewhere locally. It's a great connection to our transit system. And on that note, outside of their hours, they don't operate 24 hours a day, but outside of their hours, Uber and Lyft are another good option. And I've used it from the Louisville Park and Ride to my house, and it was $6 and a great experience. I've used it all over the country, and it's a great option.
It's not available, at least in upstate New York, I think.
Well,
Not in New York City.
I'm
either,
sure
I
there's.
think.
Do we care?
That's right.
If you're trying
Another-
to use a taxi.
Another option on the park and ride, dealing with the full park and ride situation on the Superior side, every time I go to Denver, I usually park on the Louisville side because when I get back, the car's right there. I don't have to cross the bridge. So it's, especially if it's raining or something, your car's right there. So that's another, and every time I've driven up there, there's ample parking over there for whatever reason. I think, good that Superior side is more popular, I guess. And over the summer, our family did the 2 sessions of the Marcelo Balboa camp, my 2 boys, and also had a great experience with that as well. So thanks to staff for doing that. And they also participated on July 17th in the Foam Dart Frenzy at Community Park, and good job to staff for organizing that. July 21st, I went to a 36 mayors and commissioners meeting. We talked about the B-Line train that is opening that just opened in Westminster in late July. That's the first segment of Northwest Rail that someday perhaps could go all the way to Longmont, but that construction's been delayed indefinitely due to funding. That group, Mayors and Commissioners Coalition, did draft a letter to RTD asking them to reevaluate different operating plans, including phasing or limited service. So discussion on Northwest Rail is not dead. It continues to happen, so that is ongoing. We also discussed drafting a policy agenda for that group, and that just will help define the group's positions on different transportation-related issues along US 36. And that draft agenda just went out to the board today, and it will be included in our August 22nd meeting packet, so the public will get to see it at that time. We also discussed the upcoming switch from HOV2 to HOV3. That's the toll lane on US 36. It also includes I-25 toll lanes. That is currently 2 people or more as a carpool. It's going to switch to 3 in January. It's important to know that it was always part of the plan for that to switch, and it's due to it's happening to manage capacity, and basically was necessary part of the deal to pay for all of the construction of that. So more to come on kind of the background of that, but just to be aware that that is coming. And a good way that I like to think of it, I mean, I'm sure people will think that's kind of a bad deal to lose the ability to have 2 people in a car, but the whole idea of HOV lanes is to get people out of cars. And when you think about myself and my wife going to an event and we get to ride in the carpool lane, were we going to take 2 cars anyway? No, we were always going to carpool, but the point is getting people out of cars. So that trip didn't really eliminate a car, is the point. August 2nd, also attended National Night Out, another great town event. Talked to a lot of people there and had a lot of great food at the event too. So thanks to the Sheriff's Office for putting that event together. It seems to get bigger and better every year. August 3rd, went to Metro Mayor's Caucus meeting in Denver. We spent time talking about various upcoming ballot initiatives that are going to be on the November ballot. August 4th, another Mayors and Commissioners Coalition meeting. We continue the policy agenda revisions, and again, we'll present that at the August 22nd board meeting, and the group hopes to adopt that by September. Some upcoming events to remind you of: the Chili and Beer Fest, one of the biggest events we do in Superior every year, Chamber and Town, and also the Boulder Valley Rotary Club also comes together to do the Chili and Beer Fest. September 10th, 2 to 6 p.m. Lots of opportunities to volunteer as a judge or chili cook or many other positions, so get involved in Chili Fest if you haven't done so. Some other couple of announcements and recognitions. At the National Night Out, I met with the family who owns Rock Creek Wine and Spirit in Rock Creek Village, and they told me that they've just purchased the Liberty Bank building and will be expanding their business or moving their business over into that building in the next couple of months. And so it's great to see a local family kind of growing their business and doing so right here in town. And I wanted to give a shout out to Jared Kuffner, who won some awards at the county fair for his ceramics work, and I've got some pictures on the mayor's Facebook page if you're interested in seeing that. So congratulations to Jared. All right, that's it for my announcements. Town manager? Okay, town attorney.
I apologize for not giving you all a report on the agenda. I was out of town last week, but I have reviewed each of the liquor licenses, and they are ready for your consideration. And I did review the IGA with Boulder County, and that is also ready for your consideration. And I'm happy to talk about the golf cars ordinance and the ballot language when those two come up, if you'd like.
Okay, thank you. Town clerk? Okay. All right, next we'll move on to public comment. If you'd like to make public comment, just give me a little wave and I'll signal you to come up. Ken, you want to start?
Good evening. Ken Lish, Chair of the Open Space Advisory Committee. Sandy already mentioned a lot of our views that we talked about at the OSAC meeting in relation to the SDC parks number 1 and 2. But just to reiterate what OSAC was really impressed with and further recommendations we had, we really appreciated the Coal Creek centric design. That was a change that we were really, really happy with. But the specific things that we wanted to continue to bring to your attention, we're interested in ensuring that there's reduced light pollution from the sports field. That way there's no unintended negative effects on the wildlife in the area. That's going to be the area where there's still going to be the most natural corridor of the entire Coal Creek corridor, so it's important to ensure that we don't have any of those negative unintended ramifications. To go along with that, we are requesting that the lowest light pole heights possible be used, and that the lighting be prohibited past 10 p.m. That way there's, again, less impact on the wildlife. Additionally, as far as safety goes, there's several paths along that area. We'd like to ensure that the board is aware of any safety issues that could happen, and there's low-level safety lights along the paths, similar to other parks in our town. The next topic that we wanted to address was the water quality in the creek. As you saw, it's supposed to be an interactive creek that the residents can use. We want to just make sure that that water is actually safe for them to go in, and there's actually proper testing to ensure that there isn't going to be any health and safety risks. Further, and Sandy mentioned this, we just wanted to bring up allergens in cotton, the cottonwoods that are being proposed. We understand that they serve a very vital purpose, and just to make sure that any substitutes are well researched, if possible. Again, adequate seating and resting areas along the creek corridor. Sandy mentioned that. That's something we'd really appreciate full consideration of. And finally, OSAC thinks it would be very valuable to keep Park 1 as a non-programmable green space. Park 2 is going to be very programmed. It's going to have very designated specific use. Keeping Park 1 unprogrammed will allow a more broad use for the town as a whole. The second topic I wanted to address was the penalties and violations that was for animals that was on the agenda tonight. I wanted to thank you for pulling it. There was clearly confusion on the intent of the agenda item. Because of it going on the agenda, it was clear that there's still quite a bit of conflict in the community over off-leash animals. I think that there is appropriate solutions that can be had out there, and I think this is something that both OSAC and ProStac could provide valuable input on. I would encourage the board to direct OSAC and ProStac to investigate this. I believe that we can hopefully accommodate the entire community. That way we have less of a us versus them mentality and find a solution that will make everybody happy. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Mark.
Good evening. Mark Lasis, 2910 Jade Court. I am a planning commissioner and also a candidate for Board of Trustees this November. And I wanted to speak tonight briefly about agenda item number 15, which is the question on municipal broadband. And I'm here to urge the board to vote in support of putting that question to the voters in the November election. Currently, Superior residents have two main internet choices for high-speed internet, CenturyLink and Comcast. As a resident in Rock Creek, not only is our current internet service provider that we currently use, my family, expensive, but we've faced numerous issues with intermittent coverage. This is particularly problematic for my household, as my wife works from home and depends on high-speed internet access to do her job. So you can imagine if she can't actually access the internet, that causes problems for our household. Approximately 50 Colorado municipalities have already approved similar measures for municipal broadband. Nearby communities like Longmont have had tremendous success with their program. It's cheaper than both CenturyLink and Comcast and more reliable. In addition, here in Superior, we have the opportunity to partner with Boulder Valley School District, who has already built out an extensive infrastructure to equip all of their schools with high-speed internet. My understanding of the way the technology works is that there's actually more efficiencies gained when the network can be brought to higher capacity. So there's a partnership ability here where the town could partner with Boulder Valley Schools, save on the cost of building out the infrastructure, and then gain easier and quicker and cheaper access to high-speed internet by partnering with Boulder Valley Schools. So submitting this question to the voters in November really makes sense because as a matter of law, this isn't actually a decision that the voters would be authorizing and then the town would actually be doing. This is just submitting the question to the voters as to whether or not the town should even have the power to go ahead and then further consider this. So it's really a question that we should let the voters of the town, let the democratic process play out and decide whether or not we want this as a town. Secondly, since we already have an election scheduled for the question of actually putting this on the ballot, it'll be a relatively inexpensive process to do so. It's not going to be a situation where we would need to call a special election and just have an election on this one particular issue. We already have obviously a presidential election. We've got a town election for Board of Trustees. So submitting this additional question to the voters is relatively inexpensive. I believe increased competition is a good thing. I think that the town board should have the ability to consider this. And most importantly, I think the voters in Superior should have the option to weigh in. So thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you. Additional public comment? Yes.
Hi, my name is Andrew Frazier. I live at 823 Maroon Peak Circle. Try not to make this too redundant because it seems like we've covered some of the issues regarding 13F and the off-leash and otherwise animal problem that has been brought up. The background on the 13F memo, or the ordinance that I read, said that its purpose was to lead to more compliance regarding animal issues, which makes me think that the idea behind this ordinance, it was kind of specific and pointed at least a few things of making people follow that specific law. So it got me thinking, maybe the problem isn't so much compliance with this as an oversight into why we have this problem to begin with. And in my opinion, that problem is not enough opportunities in Superior to have your dog off leash. From my understanding, the only option right now in Superior is the dog park down by the townhouses. And I mean, one of the big things that brings people to Colorado and to Boulder and Superior is the ability to enjoy outdoor activities with your pet, with your family, etc. And I understand there's just as many issues on the other side of people having negative interactions with dogs off leash, which is why I think any proposal to change these laws should be coupled with not just penalties, but with broadening the opportunity to have your dog off leash, which the gentleman from Open Space kind of hinted at. Boulder County already has a very successful green tag program that they've implemented. My dog is part of that program. In my opinion, it's been very successful, and I think that's something that could be easily incorporated into the town of Superior. So I guess in conclusion, my proposal is if we're going to talk about increasing penalties, we should also talk about increasing opportunity to have your dog off leash. Proposals being the green tag program, and just in general, maybe designating certain trails, certain parks as off-leash areas. And that is all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Any additional public comment? Yes, sir.
Corbett Huntinger, 3177 West Yarrow Circle. So the only thing I want to bring up is I thank them for you guys for pulling the dog leash off of the agenda tonight. You know, we're on the other side of the issue. We're not against dogs. We're not against off-leash dogs. We're for the safety. We've had a couple incidences where it was a safety issue, and you know, laws are established to protect the citizens. There's an ordinance that we've asked folks to follow. Whether that gets debated later on and that ordinance gets removed, that's a different issue. There's an ordinance to provide safety to the residents. When you have an ordinance and you don't enforce it, you're not establishing safety, you're establishing liability of the city, so that when an incident does happen, the city says, well, we had a law and we're not at fault. You can't blame us because we had a law, but it was never enforced. Trying to talk about an issue where you want to raise fees for something that's not enforced, that's kind of wasting everybody's time. If it's not being enforced, whether you raise fees or not, people know it's not being enforced. What do they care if you raise fees for as much money as you want? They don't care. Again, just want to let you know that, you know, we've had a lot of stress over this in the recent time. There's been a lot of personal attacks in the family. There's been a lot of social media bullying going on, and never was personal against anybody in the town. It was never against a single dog. Your dog may be great, but how do I know that? How do I know that your dog is the safe dog when there's a multiple folks who aren't? So, thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Yes, Sandy in the back.
Sandy Hammerly, 2855 Rock Creek Circle. I'm the Vice President of the Board of Directors of the Summit at Rock Creek Townhouse Association. And I just wanted to say thank you to the town manager and his staff and the trustees for allowing the improvements to Rock Creek Circle. Rock Creek Circle is the only way the residents of the Summit at Rock Creek get in and out of this community. We have always had huge problems with crossing the street. The addition of the crosswalks, I've had numerous residents of the Summit come up to me and say how much they appreciate that. I know Alex actually came up with that idea when he did the outreach meeting at the Summit, and it's fabulous. We're very, very appreciative. We also appreciate the traffic calming initiative that's taken place down closer to Starbucks. It makes it a whole lot less dangerous coming out of the Summit. I just wanted to say thank you very much. We appreciate it at the Summit, and it must be nice to have somebody say something nice. I know a number of our residents have also written members of the staff about it, but thank you very much. It's a great improvement.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Yes, sir.
Hi, Mark Arbitrero, 3230 here on Peak Ave. Just wanted to thank, Rita, for you bringing that up in the beginning. I think communication is a big thing with it's an emotional issue. We're talking about dogs off leash and such. I think as long as that keeps going on, that kind of communication, that probably can help diffuse a lot of the angst that I think everyone probably experienced in one form or another from both sides. So let's keep that up so people, because without that, people will take leaps in their in their own minds about what's being discussed and when and that sort of thing. So I think it's pretty important to just make sure that we're communicating effectively there. I just heard the word enforcement, and I'd like to make sure that that's on both sides. And so when we talk about enforcement, there are 2 ordinances out there as well. It's 10-12-30 and 10-12-40. They are false reports and false information. When those types of things happen, we're expending time, money, resources on things that I think you probably have gotten some feedback from a number of residents that, quite frankly, aren't true. And so if we're going to do play enforcement, if that's what we're going to end up doing, let's make sure it's equal opportunity enforcement and that we're confirming the veracity of reports that are given on the topic. And in the meantime, we still want to look forward. I think Phyllis will be working with you in the short term to try and help. We'll be doing a petition to support the off-leash in certain areas that people have mentioned. And I think if we do it smart in terms of mimicking what has been a successful program in Boulder and doing it in areas where it's not on like paved paths, right, where people might come in conflict more often with dogs, that might help alleviate some of the concerns as well. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Nikosha Hunninger, 3177 West Yarrow Circle. And we just wanted to say that if you're considering this sort of Boulder type off-leash system, just remember you're also sharing these trails with bikers, runners, people with kids in strollers. And I'm not sure how many of these tag programs are in areas with this much multi-use on the open space areas. And I just wanted you to all know that every report I've ever called in to animal control or to anything else has been justified. And I don't appreciate the attacks on my family or my home as well. So I just appreciate you guys knowing also that there's still a big not being enforced issue with off-leash dogs and families not picking up after their dogs, turning their backs, letting their dogs run on the open space. And we watch it happen daily. We back to the open space, so we see more than the normal people see in the town. So I just want you to know that it is still a problem with people not leashing their dogs and not leashing them on purpose. They know the law. They know that the law is there, and they're just choosing not to follow the law. So I appreciate your time, and I just want you to really consider that tag program before you go too far on it, because there's tons of people using that open space all at the same time, and people don't keep their animals under control like they should. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comments? Yes.
Hi, my name's Rich Salm. I live at 3106 Gardenia Way. And speaking in reference to the 13F issue, I've lived the better part of the last 16 years in Rock Creek and have used that open space that we're talking about, the Dakota Ridge area, quite frequently. And I'd like to push back on my neighbor's assertion to the south of me that there are tons of people back there. I have never seen more than 3, 4, 5 people in that entire open space area at any given time. And so I have never, ever had any conflict with anybody, whether they were a dog walker or a biker or a hiker or pushing a stroller, anything. I mean, to me, this is a non-issue. I've never had a complaint, never seen a complaint, and my sense is this is all something that's being drummed up by just one of our neighbors. And I guess I would ask if, if any of you are aware of a multitude of complaints coming from a variety of different homeowners in the area, and to weigh that when you're thinking about this issue. My opinion, it's a non-issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Additional public comment? Yes.
Arthur Obrzut, 1574 Astor Court. 3 months ago, my son was tripped while skateboarding by a dog that was off leash. He ended up in the hospital with severe concussion. Okay, he was on a lacrosse team. He was pulled off because doctor told him he cannot play that. He said probably he's not going to be able to play football. Okay, and this is due basically to off-leash dogs or irresponsible dog owners. Second issue I have is dog poo all over Rock Creek. Okay, basically our neighborhood, and I think this is totally unacceptable. A friend of mine yesterday, I was at his barbecue, and his son came back with my son's bag from a walk by pool, South Pool, and he says he stepped on a dog crap. Okay, that upsets me. Okay, and it upsets me that people soil basically on our backyard, and that's all I have to say. I'm very upset about irresponsible dog owners, because if there's a law for leash law, it should be obeyed. Okay. Second issue I have is with the Yarrow Circle. There's lots of speeding cars on Yarrow Circle, and crossing, especially crossing that goes to the Pirate Park. Tons of kids go through that crossing to school in the morning. And I think, the speed bump would be very useful in that area for the safety of the children. We were speaking about the safety, and I think that's one thing that really should be done out there. But again, constantly I'm walking with my kids to school every morning, and I see, I would say to the previous person, it's untrue. There's lots of people that are with the same mindset as I, or this lady over here, and I think that should be enforced. We should see some enforcement, especially by the school. I see people walking off leash by the school with their dogs. Policeman goes by and they don't do nothing about it, and that upsets me too. If the policeman sees the owner off leash, especially in a school zone, somebody should be ticketed. And thank you. That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you. Additional public comment? Yes.
Scott Janes, 2305 Clayton Circle. So, spectacular stories. Terrible concussion, whatever. They tug at your heart, they make you mad, makes me mad, makes you want to do something about it. But one of the definitions of a spectacular story is it doesn't happen all the time, or it wouldn't be a spectacular story. And if we start legislating to spectacular stories, we're legislating about the exception and not the rule. That being said, I think Superior could do a lot better to keep the two mindsets happy. We need more off-leash trails. We need more no-dog trails, maybe, not even with leash, because there's been studies that most dogs on leash are worse trained than dogs on off-leash. And it's pretty easy for a big dog to yank away from its owner. That's the untrained dog. And to me, that's the more dangerous dog. Regardless, let's do better accommodating both.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Yes.
Jeff Cody, 2420 Andrew Drive. Just short and sweet. I want to, regarding removing 13F from tonight's agenda, I just want to say thanks. I think that will give the board and the community more time to make a better informed decision, which I hope will involve the community through targeted, specific feedback and solicited feedback from the community regarding wants and needs so that we can make a decision that will be beneficial and effective for a friendlier neighborhood for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Okay. Trustee Gregorius?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for sharing what you did. I think we'll have a couple of months and we'll have another work session and hopefully make a decision that's maybe more balanced. But I kind of wanted to address something else. I don't know if what you said about being bullied on social media is correct, but if that's the truth, I would hope that we're a community that we don't do that to our neighbors, we don't do that to one another. And I would hope that everybody, our pets, our dogs are like family. It's a very passionate, subject. I mean, this is like, you're talking about a member of my family, basically, when you talk about my dog. So I get that, but I hope that it doesn't, this venom doesn't escalate to the point where anybody's targeted specifically or anybody's bullied on social media, because I think we're better people than that. And in the end, whatever we vote in 2 months or 3 months or whenever we do it, we're still going to be neighbors. So we need to get along. So that's my plea to all of you.
Okay, Trustee Banks.
This off-leash issue has come to define the dog issue in town. I want you to all know that this issue transcends just Coyote Ridge and what's happening back there. There are problems in other parts of town that also have to be addressed by anything the board does. But when I'm making a decision, I ask myself, am I on solid ground? The solid ground here clearly goes to the letter of the law. The law says on leash, and until the town arrives at a different decision, I would hope, and I have asked at past meetings, that we respect the on leash law as it now exists, because it's the one on the books. And I would ask our law enforcement officials to enforce the law on the books, just like we enforce every other law that's on the books. So I appeal to the people who prefer that their dogs be off leash, that we work through the system, that hopefully will be defined pretty quickly, to try to change through positive change. It's turning into a negative thing, and that makes me very sad. It's totally unnecessary. We can work through this in a positive manner by solving the problem, coming up with solid solutions, and remaining friendly with the entire community.
Thank you. I would agree with that, and thank you all for your interest in the topic and coming down. I know it takes time to come down here and voice your opinion, so we appreciate everyone's interest and involvement. It's your community, so we appreciate that. Okay, now we're ready for Ms. Craycraft and Superior Chamber of Commerce update.
Mass exodus. Thank you, Mayor.
We are looking for trustee candidates for this next election, so don't leave too quickly.
Heather Craycraft at the Superior Chamber of Commerce, and wanted to take a moment to announce that we have launched our new website. I'm very excited about that, and wanted to touch on one point on that website that was discussed during your updates. One of the pages that we have and have continued to use is our transportation information and commuting tips page, which has a variety of information that we would like the community to be aware of. We have resources like 36 Commuting Solutions on there as really our community kind of forward-looking nonprofit group that really helps make commuting options more friendly for all of us. It has an interactive bike map link. It also has information about RTD and all the wonderful directions you can go with public transportation, as well as Way to Go, which is another program that Dr. Cog, as many of you trustees are familiar with, has in educating the public. But I also wanted to share a letter from a resident and also a business owner. She was not able to be here tonight, But Shanty Toolsy, who owns Rock Creek After School, who is an active chamber member as well as an active parent, really in the school district as well as throughout the community, wanted to share this. So if you'd give me 1 second. She wrote, "They say you can take the girl out of the city, but you can never take the city out of the girl. That statement is so true of me. I grew up in New York City where the primary mode of transportation is public transportation. Later in life, I lived in Chicago for 12 years where no car was needed. We moved to Superior for a better public education for our daughter. The only thing I wasn't looking forward to was owning a car because of the limited access to public transportation in Superior. When I saw almost a year ago the possibility of the Superior Call-in Ride coming back, I think I was the happiest person in town. The first week the Call-in Ride service was launched, we used it 3 times as a family, as well as took the kids from Rock Creek After School who enjoyed a door-to-door pickup and drop-off. They liked the private ride. The customer service was excellent, and the bus drivers were so polite. They know me now by my first name. I plan on using this service during the school year. The customer service representative told me I can give them a schedule ahead of time, and they will put it into the system. I appreciate all the work the town did to get this very convenient and cost-effective service back to Superior, not to mention the benefit of the environment. So thank you all."
It's great to hear. Thank you. All right, we're on to the consent agenda, item number 13. Want to go ahead and act on A through E?
Yes. I move that we approve the consent agenda, items A through E.
Okay. Motion by trustee Sorelli, second by trustee Gregoris.
And I was not here for June 27th.
The minutes for July 11th, yeah.
Okay, do we need a roll call vote on that, or is voice
No.
vote okay? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you, passes unanimous. All right, item 13G, approval. Let's see, no, that's.
It's the truck.
Yes. Okay. I thought you
The fleet vehicle, I
You pulled
it.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Trustee Pennington pulled the 13G, which is approval of the purchase of a vehicle for Public Works and Utilities Department.
And my only reason for pulling it is the question about how do we resell our used equipment?
This truck recently broke down on us, and repairs are costly. So on vehicles like that, we auction them. We send them to auction.
And is it equipped with the old snowplow, the old toolbox, and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
So
the
we
new
have,
vehicle includes new plow.
to a public auction?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have a firm that conducts that public auction?
It's a company off of Highway 25 up north by 66. It's I forget the name. But
Is it-
It's a
Ritchie?
large-
Yeah,
Ritchie.
Ritchie's construction
Yeah.
auction, yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. That makes me happy.
Or do you want to buy
I'm
the
not
truck?
on the right page, but I bet you
There is
are,
no
Julia.
motion, though. We don't have it in the packet. I mean,
It's
do we
not a
have
resolution, it's just a motion to approve the purchase of a fleet vehicle.
Right, for-
So this-
Make a motion to
Okay.
approve the purchase of a
This will be a
fleet
roll call.
vehicle to the tune of $39,429.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion by trustee Pennington, second by trustee Gregoris, and roll call vote.
But we are spending money though, right? So
Yes.
This is roll call.
Sorelli?
Yes.
Dozell?
Yes.
Folsom?
Yes.
Gregoris?
yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Motion passes. All right. Item number 14 is adoption of an ordinance amending Chapter 8 of the Superior Municipal Code to allow operation of low-speed electric vehicles and golf carts on public streets in the town.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an item that has been discussed on a number of occasions over a number of years. Previously, we've allowed motorized scooters on sidewalks. That was done a few years ago. At that time, golf carts. I'm just gonna say golf carts because I can't say golf cars. I'm sorry. At that time, we considered golf carts on streets, and it was kind of new idea. So the board at that time decided that we wouldn't do it at that time. This board has discussed this issue at a previous either work session or retreat, and discussed allowing golf carts and low-speed electric vehicles on roadways. And we're seeing it in a number of different communities that have allowed it as well. The Colorado law already regulates the use of these vehicles through established procedures for municipalities to regulate the use on local streets. Kendra has prepared an ordinance for your consideration. The ordinance that before you would allow these types of vehicles on town public streets except for state highways, which is Marshall Road, and Marshall Road, McCaslin Boulevard, Rock Creek Parkway, and Colton Road and 88th Street. And that's our recommendation of staff because of the volume and the speeds of those roads. We think it's better for these vehicles to stay off of them. They would be allowed to cross these streets, but they wouldn't be allowed to be on them. Conditions to use golf carts or low-speed electric vehicles on these streets, local streets, would be that they be properly equipped and registered as by law. They not carry that it's not carrying a greater number of passengers or load than specified by the manufacturer. The speed does not exceed 25 miles per hour. The driver and all passengers are seated in seats designed and intended for such purposes. The driver and all passengers comply with the Superior Municipal Code, Model Traffic Code, and applicable law. And anybody under the age of 18 has a seat belt. Surrounding municipalities that allow these types of vehicles on their local streets with various restrictions is Lafayette, Lyons, Boulder, Erie, Littleton, Stapleton. These is just a quick survey by staff. Those in the area that don't are Broomfield, Louisville, Firestone, and Arvada. We've worked with the Sheriff's Office on this. They don't have any objections. They're also the contract law enforcement for the city of Lyons, or the town of Lyons, who allows them on the local streets. So Sergeant Chamberlain's here tonight to talk about their experience with that. And then Kendra, I don't know if you have anything to add. But
I think you covered it all. And I don't like the word golf car either, but that's the way that the state law and the traffic code reads. So I had to get used to it as well.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, my question was, would Sergeant Chamberlain give us his opinion on this?
Jim Chamberlain with the Sheriff's Office. Yeah, we've had the law in effect in Lyons for several years. It's actually, the community up there loves it, and I think this community would as well, especially if we're taking kids to school and stuff. That's the most common thing we see for people either running to the store real quick or taking the kids to school. They're not burning gas, they're not creating emissions, they're not racing, they're not speeding. There's only one accident that I'm aware of that I found in Lyons, and that was a woman who backed over a Harley. Well, probably that's the only one that I found so far that we've had in Lyons in the past few years that we've had it that involved an accident. Most people are driving them safely. You know, they make them kind of pimped out and pretty, and it's almost like a hobby.
Okay. I just had a question about where we're going with this. I'm not keen on introducing these into the mix on our open space trails. And we already have bikes, walkers, runners, unleashed and leashed dogs. And
I believe the way it's written, they would have to stay on the street.
That's correct.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Yes, right now as it's written, it would be public streets only.
Okay. Second point is one of the ordinance calls for, one of the things has to be the owner or operator holds a valid driver's license. Wouldn't it have to be the operator?
Technically, you don't need a driver's license to use these, so I don't know if you've been writing tickets for not having a driver's license.
We haven't, but I haven't come across anybody who didn't have a driver's license.
Yeah,
so why does the owner have to have one?
Yeah, I'll look that up, but technically you don't have to have a driver's license to drive one of these. So, but we can make that the requirement that in Superior you have a driver's license to operate it.
So are they subject to the motor vehicle code?
They are.
But no driver's license, no driver training.
True, I agree.
Well, that's what I thought that's why it read that you had to have a driver's license or you couldn't operate one of these.
Well, what he's saying is the owner or operator. It should probably read just the operator if that's what we're talking about. Because
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what the
that was
owner
what Jim-
has.
If
Yes.
that's the intent,
Right.
that you have to have a driver's license,
Right.
then owner doesn't mean anything.
Right,
Then
exactly.
that answers the question. I didn't see age in here.
18.
18.
Yeah, it's there.
Well, no,
I don't
you
think-
can be,
They have to have a seatbelt.
you have to have a seatbelt under 18, but you could drive
Could
it
I
under
be a
with a
37-year-old
seatbelt.
drive, you have to
taking
be
a golf
18 or
cart?
Well, if we say the operator has to have a driver's license, then the operator has to be of legal age to drive.
I like that.
Yep.
And that's 16.
I will tell you that there's
Well, that's
little
true,
battery-operated Jeeps running around with 5-year-olds driving them.
though. But not on my Caslin.
Well,
Not on McCaslin, no,
But
please.
that was going to be my question, though. When you said scooters, what kind of scooters have we authorized? Because in the past, we had problems where, I remember one of my neighbor boys being picked up and given a ticket by an
Oh, we had
officer.
the great scofflaw kid.
Yeah.
I'd have to check the code, but I think it authorizes them on sidewalks and trails. I don't know about the streets.
That's the electric scooters.
The electric ones that look like skateboards,
Right.
but,
Yeah.
I mean, little-
Not the gas ones.
not the gas ones, but yeah, not the
I
gas
can look that
scooters,
up.
motorcycles.
There are electric bikes now emerging into the
E-bikes.
world. E-bikes,
Right, right.
complicating the world.
Golden has those now available as part of a Dr. Cog of
Anyway,
fun.
I think this is coming, so.
So, question for Sergeant Chamberlain: How would one get from or get into Rock Creek Village, the shopping center? I mean, I can see coming from the south, you could technically cross
How do you get to
Rock Creek
Safeway?
Village. Right. My question is, how will I get to Safeway? Driving my golf cart that I hope to be
I
getting
know.
soon.
You have
Mine
to
too.
go down Indiana,
Indiana.
across Colton, go up to one of the local streets, and then over to Rock Creek Circle, and then
So
across.
it's a
back
longer
across
ride. I like it.
Colton.
Okay. All right. Good.
Indiana isn't one of the ones you can't drive on?
No, you can be on Indiana.
Okay, Indiana.
That's how you get there. then.
Because
Indiana.
I was thinking the same thing. I can't get out of my neighborhood. I have to go on a path and then go past Joe's house and then Joe, I'll pick you
No,
up.
you can't ride
I'll
on the
pick you
path.
up, Joe.
No, wait. You can ride on a path.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I
Right.
can't physically get out of my cul-de-sac because it's Rock Creek Parkway.
Right.
Right.
And I can't get anywhere from there. And so I'd have to go over a path, over a sidewalk, and through the cul-de-sac and down Joe's Street.
Under the
So-
bridge by Purple Park and make your way to.
So
But I can't be on the path.
The restrictions are coming from recommendations from staff. I think McCaslin and Marshall make sense to me.
Right.
Colton, Rock Creek Parkway,
Parkway.
88th. I mean, it's,
I'd like to see Rock Creek Parkway be able to be used,
It has
if
a bike
not
lane.
for just the
I
short,
agree.
if
I
just the
agree.
short segments to get certain people that are landlocked out of.
Right. There's a lot of them that
I
are
agree.
coming out of cul-de-sacs and have to get out of the neighborhoods.
And then, there's also the question of how does Rock Creek get connected to the marketplace and original town?
well, I think you'll see that
Through
as the
Coal Creek.
roadway infrastructure in the town center builds out.
Through Coal Creek when it opens up. That's why.
Right.
But I'm with you on Rock Creek Parkway. For us to get to shopping anywhere,
It has a complete bike lane.
Is that a
on
problem?
both sides.
Safety-wise, I don't like it. 'cause
I don't
car
like. I
can't go
understand.
over
I don't like it
25
either.
miles
But
an
how
hour.
else can we get there, though?
Now we're putting it on a 4-lane road with cars going 35 or
Yeah.
better.
Right. Maybe let's slow it down.
I'm
Same
going to
way.
be the naysayer in the group. I think this may be coming, but I don't think it's been well thought out yet. And I would like us to put on the brakes, slow it down a little bit, get HOA discussion going. I'd like to know how our HOA feels, our various HOAs feel about this. I think there are roads in town that are patently unsafe for this, that are off the list, like Castle Peak. Castle Peak is just a disaster waiting to happen with all the parked cars, the length of the road, the speeding that goes on there. All the kids that live on there, the small kids, and now we introduce this here. I think this type of transportation is appropriate for certain enclaves within town. For example, potentially the Superior Town Center. but open it up to the whole community that was built for cars. I'm troubled by this. So I think it's premature, and I'd like to take this almost as a first reading and put it by the various HOAs and put it out for a little more public comment than reading it in a packet. I don't think that necessarily gets the type of citizen input that I think this needs, because this really revolutionizes things. It changes things. And we ultimately will have to have full knowledge of this community to expect these slower vehicles out there on the roads, for those slower vehicles to be safe on our roads. So let's start now, before we pass it, to get this input and take the process a little more slowly.
So I would politely disagree with my fellow trustee. This was discussed over a decade ago, so it's been a long time coming, and I'm delighted to see it come before the board. It's been discussed at length. So, at the time, we pushed it down, by a few years, and the few years became almost 10 years. So, anyway, I'm planning on voting for it as a result.
If you want an answer to your earlier question, e-bikes are allowed, just to throw it out there, they're allowed on sidewalks, bicycle lanes, and bicycle paths. So those
Really?
It's exactly the opposite.
But at what age? Is there any age there? Is that a...
E-bikes or any age.
E-bike?
So you don't have to have a driver's license, you can go on the
No,
paths?
and so there is no driver's license required for golf cars. The state law requires people to be over 16, but not necessarily have a driver's license. So that's what the state law would require. So in theory, you could be 17 here and operate a golf car.
But if we have in the ordinance, you have to have a driver's license.
Unless we have
you
it in the
couldn't.
ordinance, exactly. We can certainly do that. What I'm saying is, under state law, which we've adopted via this ordinance by saying they must comply with state law as well, is you have to be over 16, but you don't necessarily have to have
I think you should have a license, honestly, if you can operate a vehicle.
The registration of these vehicles is what I don't know. I've never heard of anybody having to register a golf cart. So when it says it has to be legally registered, I'm not sure what that means. And the other thing for me is that
Who says it has to be registered?
I thought it said that. It had to be legally
Registered as
registered.
required by law.
Registered as required by law.
So you don't know what that is.
That's partially in case the state adopts something after we do. Basically, what we're saying is it has to be properly equipped and registered as required by law. So if the state next year comes in and says every single golf car must have operating turn signals, then we've adopted that,
And are we going to have a time limit, only daylight hours? Because none of them have, very few of them have lights. That would be another thing that would be of concern for me. I mean, I'll probably want to take mine down to the tavern when it gets opened on the green. And then, how late can I stay before I have to come back?
In what condition can you operate it?
You can't operate a bicycle if you're intoxicated.
Oh, no, I'm the designated driver on my golf cart. So, but the other thing is that this idea that I was trying to figure out how I could even use one, I can't get out of. So I would like to see some thought in what would be like along Rock Creek Parkway, there, the Purple Park sidewalk that goes all the way along up to Indiana. Couldn't we have designated spots perhaps? We'd have to think about this. We couldn't approve it without thinking about it a little bit. But could we have it where I could come out and go across and get on the sidewalk and tool down the sidewalk along Purple Park, along Rock Creek Parkway up to Indiana? And then I could get over to Safeway
Well,
probably.
adding to the list of questions that remain to be unanswered.
Well, that's what I'm
remain
saying.
to be answered.
No, I'm agreeing with you that I don't
Is-
think we could approve it tonight until we have some more
Is
answers.
accidents.
Yeah.
If somebody operating a golf cart fails to put it properly, break it, and it rolls into my car in a parking lot, or they violate a traffic thing and there's an accident, these things, are they insured? Who pays the...
Usually homeowners insurance covers that.
Your homeowner.
But that would be, that's another good question, is if they turn in front of you and you run into them with a car, who's at fault? And if they're at fault and they're uninsured motorists, then your insurance will probably have to pick it up. There's quite a few questions that I'm not sure. If we said we were going to let them be on the trails, I'd say, yeah, go ahead and do it. But if we're saying they can only be on the streets, I have some concerns about that.
Well, I think trails.
No, golf cars, no.
No.
E-bikes, yes. I'll just use e-bikes as the shortened term.
What else is in an LSEV? What's in that category besides a golf car?
Do you know
What does one look like?
Do you know any others?
Any moped under 50 cc's.
A moped?
Any moped, electric moped that's under 50 cc's, so a small electric, basically an electric bike. There isn't a whole lot of other things that are considered a.
And they don't have to have a license, those operators, or insurance?
Like a Vespa, if it's small?
If it's under 50
It's under
cc's,
50,
it doesn't have to have doesn't have to be registered, you don't have to have a license.
Well,
That's by state law.
yeah, so in this ordinance, a low-speed electric vehicle is defined as a self-propelled vehicle using electricity, so no gas powered, has at least 3 wheels in contact with the ground. So
3 wheels.
3 wheels. So we're talking in this ordinance about something that looks like a golf cart. Some of them have only 1 wheel in the front, but they're basically golf carts. I mean, this really is limited to golf carts. I think this was trying to expand on that in case there was a 3-wheeled version.
So circling back to the question about operating at night, if you're operating at night, you got to have lights. Is that
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
In lines,
Okay.
any vehicle, any of them that are operating at nights have headlights and taillights.
And what regulates driving under the influence of alcohol or marijuana or
It's the
anything
same.
else?
It falls under the same charge. It falls under the same traffic codes as driving a car. So if you run a red light, it's under the traffic code. If you're DUI, it's under the traffic code. So you can still be arrested for driving a golf cart under the influence of alcohol on a public roadway.
And that's all contained in that section that says the driver and all passengers have to comply with the model traffic code.
Are we getting a huge demand for this?
I can tell you that I live in Erie, and it's shocking the number of golf carts.
I would love to have them
Erie,
here.
though, is
I would love to have them here.
I would too.
more likely.
I think this is.
They're everywhere.
I think this is one of those cool things that defines a community or can define
I
a
know, it'd be
community.
great to have
And we in previous discussions we've always said we are the perfect setup because we are 4 square miles, fairly well tightly contained, and we've got this large percentage of streets that are 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. It's certainly got some challenges. It will take some figuring out how to get everyone out of certain little islands. But I think we could this is one of those things we could kick the can down the road and debate it and have. But I think it's time to move it forward, and we'll figure out those details as we come along.
I agree, 100%.
I would say tonight's discussion is about 4 times as long as any discussion we've had in the past 6 years that I've been on this board. And
You
we've
came up
only
longer than
we've
6 years
only
ago.
been at it, 20 minutes? The previous discussions were conceptual. The person who usually brings them up isn't even here, is Chris.
I was on the board when
Yeah,
it
we've
was
had this
rejected the
discussion.
last time.
Huh?
I was on the board when it was rejected the first time.
And why was it rejected?
Safety,
Right.
mostly safety, and then, and at that time, I think the sheriff was not in favor of it from a safety point of view.
To me, having Sergeant Chamberlain here endorse it is the key
But
decision maker for me in terms of safety. So
I'm of a mind that there's still enough questions going on here that I'm not sure I'm ready for this tonight. I think that
I'd like to anticipate the issues. I don't think there's any rush or cry for this tonight. And I'd like to at least spend another 20 minutes working through some of the details. So I'd like to consider this sort of a first reading, and if it comes back in 2 weeks, good.
But my concern is not going to come back for another 8 years like it did this time.
I don't
So
know if
it's-
that's the case. I don't think that's the case. My concerns are who's responsible if there's an accident, and how does that work? Let's make sure we understand who's
It's
responsible.
exactly the same as a driver of a car.
Right, but they don't have any insurance, and it's not a
But they must have
car.
some kind
It's
of
not
insurance.
insured as a car. So, yeah, I think we need to, and then I also want to know where the paths are. I want
You
to
need
know
to be
what-
able to get out.
Yeah,
from
we
your
need
I
house.
want to
that-
know what path I can actually
Actually,
go
it
on.
might be worth looking at the wisdom of using them on the concrete trails and as opposed to roads.
I don't know why we can't limit them to bike paths, the bike lanes rather than the main lanes.
They're not, they don't fit, they're not.
They're not-
They're wider than that, though.
Yeah.
But at least if they're
On
sort
the
of in
side.
there,
Yeah.
you just have to pass them in the bike lane rather than in the car lane.
It's,
I personally see that cars slowing down if they see a vehicle that's not your traditional vehicle. If I saw something like that, I would slow down. If I'm on Rock Creek Parkway, I would go to the left lane, that don't even get close to them, I
You'd
would hope.
slow down, but then you'd pass them.
Yes,
And
but to the-
that is where the.
But I wouldn't pass them in my
potential
lanes,
danger
what
is.
I'm saying. I would go to the left lane and just because I would feel more comfortable not being that close to them.
This reminds me of my trip to the Amish country. They
Okay,
deal with
good.
this quite well with
I
slow
lived in
moving
Amish
vehicles.
country.
And I grew up on a farm, and we had farm equipment all the time. But that's a little bit different than here, because what you're talking about is something that people are going to think of as a vehicle. You know, when they're in it, they're going to think they're in a vehicle, but they're not going to be in a vehicle. It's almost like bikers, you know, so you have to give way for the bikers, and bikers go on the bike lane, but they ride right on the line usually, because if you're out too far, you're too much rock and stuff over there. So I'm not against it. I just have some questions yet that I'd like to have answered. And one of them is where can you actually ride it? You know, give me a kind of a map.
Can we
Where-
bring it back before the November election, so I'm still on the board?
Oh, yeah, we'll bring
So,
it back in the
yes.
next meeting. We don't have a heavy agenda anyway.
I have some things for staff to research, type of insurance they need, how that works. We want to require to have driver's license.
Yes.
No, you are required.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
took that out.
Well, it's a, if you want to put that in
That's
the
what I'm
ordinance.
asking.
Yeah, that's, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's a question that we have to
Yeah,
have
yeah.
answered.
I think
The-
we're
The
in
answer is
agreement.
yes.
Well, the answer is they don't, under state law, need a license.
No,
But we
but I
need
was
to
asking
answer
can
that
require
for
one.
ourselves, for the
Yeah.
town.
Yeah.
We
Okay, got
want
it.
people to have
Okay.
a license.
Yes.
Got it.
Because thereby they're trained to be on the road.
Oh,
Right.
understood. I
Then they know the
understand.
road,
I mean,
right, they understand the
They're not on the
road
golf course,
rules.
they're on a road.
Right.
They need a driver's license.
Allow them on Rock Creek Parkway.
No.
Well, or
Or how can we get
limited,
the-
or limited
I would-
concrete paths to get.
I would lean towards what the sheriff's view is on that. They're thinking that's not safe,
Right.
and I'm going with that.
So how can you get the safer? That's my only thing. Let's
Then you
forget
don't,
practice,
you
but-
get in your car or bike.
No, but that's.
It's not meant for everybody and every purpose.
No, I think
that we
it's-
can take why don't you, that's what we're asking you, take a look. Is there a way in maybe on a couple, you look at it, see
Yeah.
if we have to traverse a path
To get to Indiana.
in order to get to Indiana and then off
Right.
Indiana to Safeway.
Yes,
Let's
exactly.
figure that out.
Exactly.
Because Colton Road is not going to be safe for these things either.
No, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. No, and I
You
think
can't even
I-
get kids across Colton Road.
And the roundabouts aren't going to be really comfy either.
Let's just get to
Anything
Indiana
else
somehow.
you want us to research before we bring it back?
I think it'd be good to have Trustee Hansen here as well. I'm
Yeah.
sure
Well, he'll be here next time.
He's
Yeah.
been a strong advocate
Yeah.
for it.
Why don't we do public comment on, public comment on this item? Yes, sir.
Frederick Huntinger, 3177 West Yarrow Circle. The only thing I'd ask for you guys to consider also is, I think, with the town center going in, that I think a lot of people are going to try to use these things. It seems like a majority of the folks live south of the town center, and if they would use these to try to get to town center with all what's going on there, how would they get there? Doesn't seem like they would have a way to get there, and that seems like a really good use for this, if they had a way to get there, and is the city equipped to deal with any kind of parking of these things if a lot of folks are bringing them down there, so just something to consider.
I think the best way to get there is when we open up Coal Creek. You know, that's the connection within
that
Rock
connection's
Creek to
open.
get there. That's if we don't use 88, then that's the other way to
Corbett
do it.
has two good points, though. I mean, we're in the process of building all these trails. Possibly there might end up being a trail that's actually built. Darn, I was just crunching M&Ms. Possibly the committee, you know, POSTAC or POSTAC and OSAC, however you want to do trails on that one, I like that, because then we are actually thinking about how we are going to accommodate these and being proactive rather than taking a system built for something entirely other and making it work here. And then the second thing I forgot to mention that you mentioned was, how do we park these things? Do they take a full parking?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question.
Spot?
Yeah.
Probably. I would
And,
More than a motorcycle.
huh?
Yeah, they would
Yeah.
take they would
Yeah.
take up a whole spot.
Well,
But you
and
could probably double them up with a friend.
like a
and-
smart car, you can go in front.
Right, or sideways.
I mean, we've got to think
Yes.
about these things.
No, that's fair.
Okay, any additional public comment? Yes, Mark.
Ooh, this is an exciting topic. Everybody wants to talk about that.
Mark Lasis, 2910 Jade Court. I just wanted to address a couple of the concerns raised by the trustees. Trustee Dozal raised a concern about liability and insurance and who would bear responsibility for any accident. I think it's important to recognize that there are people that use the roads riding bicycles that they don't have to insure their bicycles. They get into accidents all the time. I don't think that we can, and I don't think that it's wise to limit the ability in this society really to be free and to do things that we want to do unnecessarily because we're trying to think of every possible permutation of things that could potentially go wrong. I think under these circumstances, we have laws on the books that deal with what happens when somebody's negligent. Sometimes there's insurance in place to cover those liabilities. Sometimes there's not. But we still have laws. We have courts that can provide a remedy in the event that somebody is actually harmed. So I think if there is nothing on the books that requires a golf car in this type of situation to necessarily need to be insured, I don't think that should be a deal breaker for the board. I think also, and I have no interest in this whatsoever to actually purchase one of these things, but I agree with Mayor Folsom and Trustee Gorgoris that this would be something that would set our town apart. And if this is something that the residents want, and if the sheriff's officer, Sergeant Chamberlain, said that this is something that, and he's never seen any increased accidents, that this should be something that the board should champion rather than look at ways of preventing it from happening. If it's something that people want, we should let the people have it. Thank you.
But who wants it? That's the question is, we haven't really asked. We've just had light conversations.
Well, it sounds like it's been a conversation for over a decade. So,
It
and
has
if
been.
it's a trend that's growing in other communities.
I'm going to take the M&Ms away from me for now.
We can have the other public comment, then maybe you can make a comment.
Yeah, we've probably had more conversation about potential off-leash dogs than we've ever had collectively about this issue. But don't presume I'm trying to stop it. I am trying to do it wisely and carefully and not put the cart before the horse.
And I wouldn't presume that you're presuming anything. My only thinking is that this is more of a philosophical thing, but I think the purpose of government is not to try to anticipate every possible thing that could go wrong. And I think that people should be free to do what they want as long as it's not going to impinge on the rights of others. And this is one of those things. If somebody wants to have a golf cart, so be it. They should have a golf cart.
Thank you. And by the way, Trustee Hansen is not here, but one of the discussions we had, I'm sure Joe remembers this, is the environmental factor too. Rather than starting your car and driving down to Safeway 10 times a week, you have this electric, vehicle of sorts that takes you down there, and so it's the additional aspect which hasn't been brought up tonight.
I think that, when you're listening to us have these conversations, all of you should recognize that just because we ask questions doesn't mean we're against something. Asking questions is our job to do that, and just because I asked a question about what insurance, it was more of a thought-provoking question for me. It wasn't that I was going to try and insert into the ordinance to have any kind of insurance required for these things. It's just, I would ask that question of myself before I drove or purchased a golf cart to drive on the Superior Town streets. So I think that we, as trustees that are elected up here, should be asking all the questions that we might ask ourselves or our residents might ask. And if we don't do that, we don't ask a lot of questions, we're not doing our job. Doesn't mean we're trying to impinge or we're trying to preclude some idea that is our own. And so don't jump to a conclusion that we're against something just because we're asking a lot of questions. That's our job, is to ask a lot of questions and then be able to present something that makes sense for the more of the community, the most that we possibly can. So I like the idea of a golf cart. I just have some of these questions like, how do I get out of my community? And if someone runs over me, who's in charge?
Let's continue with public comment. Mr. Hill.
Hi, Brian Hill, 2110 Kyoto Lane. Hey, I really hope that the board follows a systematic approach to entertaining this. 15 or 16 years ago when I moved here, I thought, wow, what a perfect community for golf carts. But, you know, the community's changed a lot. I mean, it's gotten more populated. Surrounding areas have become more populated. There's more traffic. We're a very hilly, topographical area. We get a lot of inclement weather. We're not a golf course community. You know, there's going to be issues with these little vehicles. They're not very heavy, and they get hit by a truck or a large car. There's going to be some serious damage to the occupants of that vehicle. They're electric, and I'll guarantee people are going to run out of electricity while they're driving their carts on Rock Creek Parkway or wherever you have them going, and somebody's going to have to get them out of there. You're just really introducing more problems by introducing these small, nifty little cars into the mix of vehicular traffic. That's it. I really just hope you guys pursue a nice, systematic approach. You list all the issues and share it with the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think somebody running out of juice, it's very likely to happen. It's like running out of gas. I guarantee you it only happens once in your life, and you learn your lesson. It doesn't happen again. So I'm sure that that might happen. I have no issue with that.
Okay, any additional public comment on item number 14? Okay. So
I'd like
let's
to call the question. Let's vote on it.
We're not.
I thought we were moving
bringing
it to
it
the
back.
next
I mean,
meeting.
if you-
Oh, good. Okay, well.
Yeah.
But as long as he comes back again
It's not a point.
in some reasonable time.
Okay, so item number 14 will be brought back at a possibly the next meeting, possibly future meeting.
We're-
Future meeting. Okay. Not-
Do we have to remain, keep we're
Wasn't a
open?
public hearing.
There wasn't
Yeah, it's not a public hearing.
No, it doesn't
Okay,
matter.
okay, fine. Thank you.
All right. Adoption. Item number 15 is adoption of a resolution
Can
submitting.
I ask one more question to add to the list to be answered? What's the population of Lyons compared to the population of Superior, since we use that as our comparison?
Well, I use that as the comparison because Boulder County Sheriff's Office does law enforcement for that community.
But
We listed a number of communities that
Lafayette.
allow golf carts. We can give you the population for all those communities if you'd like.
They're bigger than ours.
Lyons is probably under 2,000.
Yeah.
Lafayette's 20,000.
Yeah, Lafayette's
Yeah,
more.
but we don't have a report on Lafayette and the problems
Right.
it poses.
Yeah, but
So
that's
could
correct.
you
It's
maybe-
probably
Could you maybe
2,000
get
or
a
less.
report from a couple of bigger, or communities of similar size?
Mhm, yeah.
Okay.
Is Boulder mentioned?
Yeah.
Boulder County or Boulder itself? The
Oh,
city
the
of Boulder
city.
has.
Yeah.
Really, they can ride around in golf carts. Pretty cool.
Okay. Item number 15, adoption of a resolution submitting to the registered electors of the town question authorizing municipal broadband services at the town's regular election on November 8th, 2016.
Thank you, Mayor. So Colorado Senate Bill 152, or SB 152 as it's referred to, was passed, I don't know when that was passed, but several years ago, and it placed limitations on local governments to engage in telecommunication services, including any partnerships that cities might want to engage in. However, it did allow provisions for government entities to exempt themselves, but with approval of the voters to provide services. SB 152 is a measure passed by the Colorado State Legislature in 2005. Answer my own question. Its intent was to limit governments from competing with the private sector. Among other provisions, it requires local governments to secure voter approval before enacting into broadband business. Without such approval, the law limits the ability of Colorado municipalities to provide a wide spectrum of services, including free internet services to libraries, parks, community centers, leveraging any infrastructure that the city might have, or partnering with a private business to provide affordable high-speed internet service throughout the entire community, and direct provision of broadband services by municipal governments. A voter-approved exemption from this bill would restore the telecommunication and cable autonomy that cities had prior to 2005. The exemption from SB 152 would also allow the town to consider numerous options for being involved in broadband services, options including installing and leasing fiber to private entities, creating a public-private partnership to provide services, or directly providing services to our residents and businesses. I'd like to point out that the exemption, if approved by voters, does not mandate the town to take any actions, but does allow for the opportunity. It's the first step in the process. Without this, the town can't even consider any of this. The passage of a ballot measure would not commit, again, the town to providing any broadband services, but does make such services, and does not make such services available immediately. The Town Attorney's Office, Kendra, has provided draft ballot language for the board to consider tonight and discuss. She's probably well versed on the subject. Over 36 cities in the state of Colorado have asked and received voter exemption from this bill. In order for the town to place this question in the November ballot, we would need to have board approval of a resolution of ballot language by September 8th at the latest, so we can get it to the county. Staff supports the resolution because it allows the town to have options in providing services to residents and businesses. Provided a resolution with ballot language as well, CML, Colorado Municipal League memo on this topic, as well as election results from other communities, and a paper from the University of Colorado on providing municipal broadband services for your review. We're here for questions.
Okay. Trustee Gutierrez.
So to me, out of all the resolutions we've had to pass in the past, this is a no-brainer. This is probably the easiest one. And monopoly does not have the best interest of the residents, and we've been monopolized by poor service at times. I'm sure it didn't only happen at your house. We've had our own frustrations with Comcast and CenturyLink. So democracy at hand, put it to the voters. Hopefully that will be successful, and we can take it from there. But this is a very easy decision to make for me anyway. So I'll be voting in the affirmative.
I would agree. I think it's all about providing choice and positioning the town to be ready to take advantage of whatever comes along, and you have to do this step in order to be there. So it's a good proactive thing for the town to do.
I think, I'm sorry, I think that your words have to be reversed. You said this is a good opportunity to provide choice and be positioned. It's really be positioned to provide choice, because there is no choice that will be provided as a result of this. You know, and I want us to be very clear about that, that it says be authorized to provide high-speed internet. That does not mean we will, as a result of this election, if this is successful, automatically start providing. So I think we need to say that in the words, that this will allow us to position, be authorized to position us to be able to consider, or however we do it.
Yeah.
But we have to have words that very clearly says you are not authorizing Superior to start providing after this election internet service and broadband services.
No, that is,
I mean, we know what we're
clear.
talking about, but I think the people that are reading it aren't necessarily going to get that. unless we are very clear.
I think people that have followed these elections in other municipalities, they're clear that this is the first step in a multi-step process.
Right. So, I mean, the next step, and I forgot to mention this, would be, let's say if this is put to the voters for approval, it's approved, there is funds identified in the 2017 budget to do a study, broadband study, and that would take a look at our population, what's available now, all the different aspects of it, and then provide a report to the board to decide what the next step after that would be, whether it's partnering with a private entity or installing our own network or what, and provide the costs.
Matt, do you know for there's 36 municipalities or cities that have been exempt? How many of those have actually taken that next step to give that option to their residents? Do you know?
Well, the city of Longmont is pretty far along.
Because they already had fiber, though, in their town.
Right.
We have no fiber that's owned by the town of Superior.
Right.
So
That's
whereas
right, yep.
if a town already has fiber, then that's a great, you absolutely, you have to go forward and do this. And I think
that's what
that,
the study would, next year, provide to the board to see what all of our options are and
Right.
costs associated with those options. Yeah.
I too think this is the thing we should do. I'm not against this, but I just want to be very clear. This does not mean we're going to dump Comcast or any other US or CenturyLink or any of the rest and move to provide our own internet. It just gives us the right to do it if we want to.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm agreeing, I'm supporting this, and there was an article in today's paper which explained that we're considering this, and the point is, I also heard today that on the this year's ballot statewide, there's so many initiatives coming up that the trend tends to be when there's so many that they get voted down because people stop reading them and just start saying no, 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 no. So we have to have some education going on here of what this is about and why we're doing it, and we have to follow up. So the point that Trustee Dozel's making is very true. This doesn't mean we're going to start doing broadband next year if this passes, and we have to make that clear to the electorate. But I don't want to fidget with the wording of this resolution to try to do that. I think this is clear enough.
Yep.
And when you start playing with the wording,
I want to fidget.
Well, I'll listen
But
to.
I am going back to the my compliments, since I hollered about other stuff. I'm going to give you great compliments on the thoroughness of this agenda item and the documentation that came with it. I loved it. And so if you go to, I agree with Rita that word authorization is pretty active, and it creates an expectation possibly among less educated, and we cannot guarantee the education of the people who vote on a full ballot, and this ballot's going to be very full, as you just said. So you'll, if you go to, and I'll just read it to you so you don't have to find it, but it's the CML, Colorado Municipal League, sample local government ballot language. There are choice of words rather than authorize, be authorized to, is have the legal ability to provide, which is a little less misleading that it will happen. The legal ability to provide.
Which one are you looking at?
Now I went through all of them. And then there's another one that says the legal right to provide.
Yeah,
And both of those, I think, don't mislead as much as the word be authorized.
Legal right, I'd like more.
The legal right. Okay, so I'm on,
That was.
here, let me go back. Go to the third memo under the agenda items, CML memo on SB 152 elections. Open it up, of course. Go down to page 5 of it. And then what I just did was I read all of those under sample local government ballot language, and I keyed in, okay, San Miguel right there, the second one. Shall San Miguel have the legal ability to provide, right there. And then go to the municipal questions, the way that other towns said them. That's where I must have found that shall have the legal right to provide. Somewhere in there.
I just saw this legal right one too.
Huh?
I saw the one that used the words legal right. And
Right. So I'm not finding it right now, but that's where I got it. So going back to the resolution, without increasing taxes, shall the town of Superior have the legal right to provide high-speed internet rather than be authorized? I like that language better. And then the second thing, when I vote on a ballot, if there's something in parentheses I don't understand, I get suspicious. And so the second line here, be authorized or have the legal right to provide high-speed internet, parens, advanced services. Because that's unclear to me what it means, I become suspicious of it. What does that clause mean, advanced services?
Okay, well, it's supposed to include all the services that are allowed. by-
Kendra.
It's supposed to include all the services that are allowed by 2927-101 without specifying. It's, the advanced services is defined in that statute.
Yeah, that's why it's being used, because the
The statute uses that term.
uses those terms, so you have to use the term again in that.
Right.
Yeah, but you can also be more explanatory of that, as some of these.
It just makes for a very long question. Usually
Yeah.
the shorter the question, the better.
I agree with you.
So we can certainly add
So
more
what's
to it.
what's your experience with having that clause, advanced services? Does it trip people up or not?
No, I've never had any of these.
I think they'll key in on high-speed internet.
Yeah, I've never had any of these even be close. with my
Okay.
client, I'll be
Well,
honest.
Longmont failed. If
The
you
first time, but that was, there was a lot of press about that. I'm saying since that time, in later resolutions, I've not had any of my clients even come close to failing.
Right.
Because they weren't, Longmont was doing more than just reestablishing their right, which kind of like that.
Right.
The words reestablish the city's right to provide
Well-
services. So,
I want to say, shall the town of Superior have the legal right? We're not home rule, so
Okay.
those cities that do
Okay.
the reestablishing, they're home rule.
Okay,
So,
that makes
I
fine.
think we need to leave that part out, but we can certainly say, without increasing taxes, shall the town of Superior have the legal right to provide?
Yeah.
And we can, if we want to define advanced services, we can. It's just that will make it far longer.
and it'll be
So-
limiting then, won't it? Be more limiting, I think.
No, I mean, we would just simply repeat what's in the statute,
Oh.
but that would be much longer.
Kendra, I'm willing to give in on the advanced services. I'm just telling you how I
Sure.
vote. If something is undefined in something, I feel like I've got to go to the blue book and read it and see
Sure.
what it's trying to say.
I'm looking through the others to see, because some of them,
But you bring up a good-
use the term, say, described as it here, for example, here's Ray, without increasing taxes, shall the citizens of Ray be reestablish the city's rights to provide all services and facilities restricted since 2005 by Title 29, Article 27, described as advanced services. Boulder's read exactly like this with the parentheses. And I think that's, again, just the desire to keep things short, but,
Right. I think short is
Short is
paramount on this ballot. Third line, though, so it says to provide high-speed internet, parens advanced services, comma, communication services, and cable television services. Some of them say and or. Why did you leave off the or?
because we legally never need and or, and covers it.
Yeah, it becomes a
So the word and does not presume all three must be
Well, no, we
provided?
will have the legal, we want it to say and, because we want the legal right.
to do all three.
To all,
Of
to
the
do
legal
all
right,
three.
okay, good.
I think that the blue book, though, will we give also words that talks about, it describes it better? And who does that? Do you do that, or do you do that, Phyllis?
No. It's not Tabor, there is no Blue Book.
Okay.
Because it's not increasing any taxes, which is.
The only time it talks about that is when there's an increase,
Yes.
when it describes, is there other documents I usually get, though, that tell you each one, that gives a little description of it, I think? Okay, fine.
There'll be the
I think as long as we
they'll-
change this language, I think, and do our communication.
There will be the election guide. I mean, the camera will have their election guide, and this, I'm sure they'll cover this question, and there'll be an opportunity to have some
Last
explanation.
question I got from a resident today. If we do this, let's say it passes and we do this, what happens to Comcast and
Nothing.
CenturyLink? They will still, all residents will still have
Yes.
those on
Yep.
the menu to choose from?
Yes.
Okay.
Doesn't impact our cable franchise, exactly. And then, I mean, residents will have on the menu whatever the providers are willing to provide, other than Comcast, because the way the federal government works, again, is cable services are over here, everything else is over here. Comcast has a cable franchise with us. This will not affect that. On the other side, with internet, companies provide what they would like to provide. There's no obligation for them to provide anything. But this shouldn't change anything. In any of my clients, other municipal clients that have adopted this, it hasn't changed a single thing, other than they're all looking into ways to see how they can help and provide these services, in addition to, not in lieu of, in addition to other services.
Okay. Public comment on this item. Any public comment? Okay. Any further discussion? Someone going to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Okay, so I'll make a motion, Town of Superior Resolution R 52, Series 2016, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior submitting to the registered electors of the town the question of authorizing, are we going to say authorizing up there? Or did we change that word? Municipal broadband services.
Well, that's the title of the resolution. If you want to also change the title. I've changed it in the ballot text.
Okay.
The ballot text now says have the legal right. We can change it in the title of the resolution if you like.
change that as long as the ballot language is different.
The ballot language says have the legal right.
Okay. Then we will have the question of authorizing municipal broadband services at the town's regular election on November 8th, 2016. And the ballot text will read per the changes made by town attorney.
Okay, motion by trustee Dozal, second by trustee Sorelli. Do we do a roll call vote on this one?
No, you don't need,
Okay.
it's up to you, but you don't
Okay.
need one.
All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Thank you. All right, anything further for tonight? Further?
We are right on time.
We're right on time. How do we do it? Okay.
Pure luck.
We're adjourned.
Sorry to slow you down on your golf cart.
That's a good man.